The untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing games are missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. And yes, guys, it is in fact everybody's favorite late night boxing program. We don't got HBO boxing after dark, but we damn sure got True School after dark. So you guys know what it is. It's your boy BT, Brennan Taylor. And welcome back to the home of boxing on YouTube. We're here. This is, in fact, the aftermath of Keyshawn Davis and the underwhelming performance over the weekend against Albright, albeit effective. He wasn't in trouble. He won the fight. So we're going to talk a little bit of Keyshawn Davis and just all that good stuff. And then we're also going to talk about all the latest and greatest happenings in the fight game. Lomachenko coming back, targeting Vaquero Navarrete and Gervonta Davis. You got Oscar Collazo. Me and shout out to my boy Joel. Me and my boy Joel and one of the Filipino riders. We got Oscar Collazo calling out Pedro Tajuron on Twitter today. Stuff going on in the featherweight division as per usual. And yeah, just all kinds of stuff. So before I get into my talking points, because this is going to be a 2-hour live, might even be a 3-hour live. Who knows? We'll see how the chat is and just how lit it can get. If it gets lit enough, I might stay on here for 3 hours. I might stay on here till 3 in the morning, because I'm just that type of guy. But nonetheless, I'm going to give you guys minimum customary 2 hours. And then you guys are showing up. Make sure you smash the like button if you're watching the live. If you're watching the playback, definitely smash the live, subscribe, super chat, all that blase. And yeah, we're definitely closing in on that 91,000 subscriber mark. So I'm excited about that. But anyway, before I get into my talking points, because I got 7 or 8 of them roughly. Let's take some time to acknowledge the fine folks that are already here, making their presence felt here on True School Sports. Let me see what we got. Let me see who do we got here. We got a lot of people here. So shout out to my man J Dub. He says, "Salute BT. I won't be able to make the stream, but I plan to watch playback. I think Haney beats Keyshawn convincingly." Also, shout out to Pops for asking the tough questions. Yes, Pops stole the show. I didn't think that was going to happen. That wasn't planned. We went to the media room after the Keyshawn Davis fight. He was eating snacks, eating chips. The media, from Virginia was asking these tired-ass questions, and Pop said, "Let's get to the nitty-gritty." And he asked Keyshawn Davis why he's being so buddy-buddy with Shakur Stevenson, and that had the whole media room on fire, right? So he definitely stood on 10 in very hostile territory. So you got to respect Pops, even if you disagree with them. Marlon Prince, what's good, champ? Good to see you. TSM in the building. Shout out to you, champ. Good to see you. Josh, BT the GOAT. Shout out to Josh, my main man, longtime viewer. Dog, we got Dog in the building. We got Hawker Mustang in the building. We got Moody's Gamble says, man, if Keyshawn gets upset from clinches, Devin Haney isn't the fight for him. He might get disqualified if it's this easy to get in his head. That's true. It's a good point. That's a very, very good point. Who else? Did you catch Andy Hiroka's live? Good to see him in good spirits, aiming for a big fight. I didn't get a chance to watch the live. I just seen the clip that he put out on Twitter. But I'm gonna do a video about Andy Hiroka soon, and I'm actually gonna reach out to Andy Hiroka soon because there's a trainer that I know here in the States that wants to work with him. So I want to see if that could be a thing. But good to see Andy Hiroka in good spirits. Hakim Mustang wants to know if I got a nap. No, I did not get a nap. I've been working very, very hard on a lot of things related to True School Sports and related to Team Angelo Leo and just related to just upcoming trips and things like that. And just I have my own life as well. So no, I have not gotten a nap, but I didn't need a nap because I got my magnesium right here. I got my coffee right here, and I'm dialed in. I've been anxious to get to go live today. So no, I didn't need a nap. We got one of the, in my opinion, one of the true greats of boxing media, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not just about views or subscribers. To me, it's all about can you do a great interview? And this guy has done a lot of great interviews, and he opens my mind up a lot to boxing when I tune into his channel. We got Lukey in the building, and he wants to know, what are my thoughts on Amari Jones? I like Amari Jones. I think Amari Jones is one of the best middleweights in the division right now. I think he's definitely going to be a world champion, especially in a thin middleweight division. But I know he's headlining out there in the Bay Area this weekend against Vincenzo Gutierrez. It's a little showcase fight, which I like. I love the Bay Area. I fell in love with the place when I was there last September for the Yugo Osaki training camp, and I had a chance to watch Amari Jones get it in and, do some sparring, which I won't speak much on because, I did sign an NDA, but he's a he's a very talented fighter, and I think in this particular middleweight division, you know, it's the landscape is there for him to shine bright like a diamond. And I think I'll throw this out there. When it comes to Amari Jones, I think one of the big fights that's going to be talked about in the coming years is going to be the amateur rematch between him and Xander Zayas when Xander Zayas inevitably moves up. And I think Golden Boy Promotions is taking the right steps to build him into one of the young stars of the middleweight division. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Amari Jones, and shout out to him and Virgil Hunter and Coach Jeff Riel and all the fine folks in the Bay Area that I had a chance to get to meet out there when I was there. Let me see. Let me answer a couple more, and then I gotta get into like the nitty gritty of all this. But doggone or pound for pound, the number one pound for pound, the number one pound for pound Jaron Ennis fan on social media. I don't care how much you think you like Jaron Ennis. You don't like Jaron Ennis more than this guy. This guy, like I said on Twitter, I'll say it right here. My main man, pound for pound, he needs lifetime ringside Jaron Ennis tickets. So Boots, Team Boots, Bozy, anybody out there in pound for pound, you might want to clip this for Twitter and put it on Twitter as an advert. This man deserves all the tickets to any and all Jaron Ennis fights. So Boots, don't leave your man out to dry. Take care of this man because he defends him under any and all circumstances when he doesn't even deserve it sometimes. But he says BT is officially part of Team Jaron Ennis. I wouldn't say that. I'm only part of a couple teams in boxing, but you know, I was reached out to by a particular person close to the Boots camp about a particular fighter that I have a good relationship with, and it appears that they're going to spar each other. So yes, you know, I am playing a minor role in Boots getting some good sparring for the fight, but you know, that's I wouldn't say I'm part of the team. You know, they want to know, wait, is Pops part of the media with you too? Occasionally, you know, when Pops can make it out to these big fights, which sometimes he can't because he's got health concerns and things like that. But when he can make it out, yeah, Pops. This isn't the first time. Like Pops made a splash this weekend pressing Keyshawn Davis, which I didn't know he was going to do. So that was kind of crazy. But it ain't the first time Pops has asked questions. You know, he's interviewed Bob Arum. He's interviewed Pinklin Thomas, right, one-on-one. He asked Gervonta Davis some questions when we went to the media scrum for the Hector Garcia media workout in Miami at Fifth Street Gym. So Pop, listen, quiet as kept. Pops ain't just here talking on True School. Like Pops has actually, he got a little media resume on him, you know, quiet as kept. Shout out to Chris out there in New York City. I'll be out there in New York City for the Jaron Ennis fight. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully get to meet you out there. BT, any news on who's broadcasting the Yugo Osaki fight? I'm trying to tap in. That's a good question. I haven't really looked into it myself, so I'll have to look into it when I get an answer. If I get an answer, I'll let you know. If I don't let you know here, stay tuned to Twitter. You can ask me on Twitter. And I might have an answer for you there. But yeah, I'm looking very forward to seeing Yugo Osaki fight because you know I was a part of his journey for a little bit of time. You know, we don't really talk anymore because that's on his end, not my end. You know, I still got love for that kid out. If he called me tomorrow, I'd forgive him for the last 8 months. But you know, sometimes things just run their course in boxing. So I still support him, but I have zero idea what's going on with him. You know, as far as the broadcast. But I still think he's gonna go all the way and become a world champion. That I'll hold true. I'll hold firm on that one. Okay, last couple of comments, and then I'll go ahead and you know, get to the live. But y'all got it on fire right now. He says, BT, we know you're friends with Jin and you love Brian Lemon Jr. If they fight again, will you help Jin in camp if you get the chance to? If I get the chance to help Jin, it doesn't matter who he fights. So if the Brian Norman Jr. rematch happens, it's going to be a bit conflicting because I do love Brian Norman Jr. But yeah, I mean, Jin's one of the most enjoyable fighters I've ever been around from a media standpoint, and definitely from the standpoint of working with him as far as film study and things like that. So if I get the chance to, of course, but you know, he's got to keep winning. Norman has to keep winning for that fight to make sense again. We got Joel in the building, and I want to give Joel a special shout out. Joel right here deserves a special shout out, and we'll get to it later on in the live. But he pressed Oscar Collazo on Twitter today, and he actually got Oscar Collazo to call out Pedro Tajaron, which is breaking news because he's been calling out everybody but Pedro Tajaron. So we love that, and hopefully he can hold true to that and make the fight happen. And I actually interviewed Oscar Collazo to come here on True School and do an interview if he wants to, but he hasn't got back to me yet. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Josh over there highlighting it. So look, that being said, let me go ahead and just get into the live because I got some talking points I got to run to. I appreciate everybody here. Make sure you smash the like button and get your comments sent, super chat, subscribe, all that blase. But look, we'll go to screen share and we'll start the live off on a really good note because today, now it's May 19th, but my dad on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, it's still my dad's birthday. My dad's birthday is May 18th, so shout out to Pops, happy 58th birthday to the man, the myth, the legend, the other half of the untouchable True School Sports empire, the man that introduced me that introduced me to boxing, the man that really is just a massive part of what we got going on here, my life, how I am, right? But he's the crazier version of me, the much crazier version of me, right? Because I didn't jump out of planes, I wasn't in the army. I didn't shoot people. I don't have PTSD, right? So my dad is different, but he's a great person, and I learned a lot about life from him and things like that. But it's his birthday, so make sure y'all show your love. If you love this channel and you love Pops, make sure you guys show your love, your gratitude, and your appreciation to him. I'm very lucky that he's still here because 5 years ago, back in 2021, he had a heart attack. So this could have been over at 53, but God, thank the Lord, he's made it. 5 more laps around the sun since then. He's 58. And this is the guy that put me in front of the TV when I was 6 years old to watch Felix Trinidad and Bernard Hopkins. And that's why I fell in love with boxing. And, like it says in the tweet, I don't get to where I got to and where I'm eventually going to go because I'm going places, and I have a big level of optimism for my life in boxing. None of this is possible without this man. The sacrifice he made for me as a kid, young man, working 2 jobs, raised me by himself, kept me out of trouble. I owe it all to this man. So it's lovely that he's made it another year. And I just wanted to start off the live by saying, happy birthday to Pop. So if you guys love this channel, if you love what I got going on, definitely show your respect to him because there's like I said, there's none of this without him. And the whole world, I feel like the whole world, a lot of people will learn who Pops was this weekend when he went in there and asked Keyshawn Davis a tough question, which is good because it's good to have, it's refreshing to have realness in the boxing media. And a lot of the reporters were kind of taken aback by Pops this weekend because a lot of times the media is not going to ask those kinds of questions. And the way he phrased it was very, very crazy. So, like he's not diplomatic. He's old school. He's straight to the point. He's going to tell you how he feels, right? Whether you like it or not. So, happy birthday to Pops. But nonetheless, yeah, for sure. But nonetheless, let me get to the okay. So I wanted to get into Keyshawn Davis, right? Because we were there, me and Pops, we made the drive to Virginia, first time in Virginia. So shout out to everybody from Norfolk. Everyone that we met in Norfolk was just amazing. Norfolk was very, very cool. I liked Norfolk. It was a cool time. I'll probably go visit Norfolk again because I really enjoyed my time there. But the Keyshawn Davis fight with Nahir Albright was underwhelming. It was effective. It wasn't like he was in trouble. It wasn't like the outcome of the fight was ever in doubt. Albright didn't have as much success counterpunching Keyshawn Davis in the rematch as he did in the first fight. He didn't have that same success he had in the back half against Frank Martin either, right? Albright was, in my opinion, I thought Albright very early in this fight, he made a decision that he was going to be crafty, he was going to survive, he was going to hold, he was going to clinch, and that's what it was going to be. And he just didn't have enough with him to deal with Keyshawn Davis in a rematch, right? But let's call a spade a spade. And you guys know I'm not no massive Devin Haney fan, right? A lot of people have accused me of being a Devin Haney hater at particular points in this channel's history. But what I saw from Keyshawn Davis in that fight is not going to be enough if he is to go to 147 and fight Devin Haney. And pretty much all of us think that he's going to go to 47 at some point soon because he missed weight again at 140 pounds. And he just got here. And he's a big guy, right? So say what you want about Devin Haney. You could say Devin Haney's boring. You could say, Devin isn't this, Devin isn't that. But one thing Devin Haney definitely is he's very experienced. All right. He's experienced. He's seen a lot of different styles. He's definitely going to have some confidence. He got his confidence back, beating Brian Norman Jr. in a very, very big fight, one of the biggest fights of 2025. He's very sharp down the middle. And if nothing else about Devin Haney, while you could sit here and say that Keyshawn Davis is the more dynamic offensive fighter, because I think he is. I think anybody with 2 eyes or 4 eyes like me can see that Keyshawn Davis is the more offensively dynamic fighter. It may not matter, because really and truthfully, Devin Haney is the one thing. Devin Haney's best trait, when for the most part, apart from the Ryan Garcia fight, I would say Devin Haney's best trait is that Devin Haney, he knows himself, he knows his strengths, he knows his weaknesses, and he fights to his strengths as much as he possibly can. Most of the time, apart from the Ryan Garcia fight, Devin Haney does not get caught up in trying to please me, trying to please you, or trying to please the crowd or the fans. He fights in a way that's very poised, mature, professional, sharp down the middle, and boxes you behind a nice, educated jab. That's what he does. And when you fight Devin Haney, you got to be focused. You have to have a certain level of maturity. And you have to, and if you don't, like Brian Norman Jr. showed in their fight, you can pay. And I'll tell you this, Keyshawn Davis, I saw him not switched on in this Albright rematch. He was taunting a lot. He was showboating a lot. And maybe that's just because he realized that he's more talented than Albright, right? He was streaming most of this camp for the fight, and he missed weight. Maybe he does tighten it up for Devin Haney because Devin Haney is on a higher level than Albright. He's got a higher pedigree, bigger name. He probably mentally gets up for that fight more. But I'll tell you this: missing weight, just not being dialed in when you're in the ring, and not even just that. Even if he is dialed in, I mean, Devin Haney has been in there with a lot of high-level fighters in the pros. Lomachenko, Brian Norman Jr., even going to Australia 2 times to fight a guy like George Kambosos, who people don't regard highly, but still that experience of being on the road in non-favorable circumstances, that has definitely given Devin Haney a lot of confidence and experience like Keyshawn Davis doesn't have in the pros. So my thing is, if you really want to fight Devin Haney, which Keyshawn Davis has said it many, many times, because we know he ain't gonna fight Shakur. We've hashed that out enough times. If you're serious about fighting a guy like Devin Haney, you need to come to the ring a lot more mature of a fashion. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. It really ain't. And from the Devin Haney side of things, I wanted to speak about, and I guess I'll go to screenshot. I wanted to speak about why this fight makes sense for Devin Haney right now. And by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, this is Keyshawn Davis right here. I had a chance to see Keyshawn Davis after the fight briefly. And I pretty much told him that, Debo is coming for him, because that's what Devin Haney said on Twitter. He's like, who is that? And he had a little bit to say there, and we had some fun, and that's going crazy on Twitter. And by the way, go follow me on Twitter at True School Sports if you don't already. I'll be on there talking crazy, having fun, interacting with boxing fans. It's a great way to get a hold of me. But Devin Haney said, look, Debo is coming for Keyshawn, as you guys can see right there. And I want to get into why I think it makes a lot of sense for Devin Haney to fight Keyshawn Davis right now, because when you talk about Keyshawn Davis, first of all, he is a former world champion. He's undefeated. So you fight a guy like him now on the record, that's a O. And we know that Devin Haney loves to fight guys with good records, right? That's a O on his resume. If he beats Keyshawn Davis, that puts him in a position where now Shakur Stevenson might feel more enticed to fight Devin Haney at 47, because, kind of like what's going on with O'Shaquie Foster. Shakur Stevenson, for good, better, and different, has a lot of boxing brothers. One of them is Raymond Ford. The other one is Keyshawn Davis. So, if you can beat one of his boxing brothers, then common sense says that maybe you could entice Shakur Stevenson to get in the ring with you, right? And Keyshawn Davis, I give him his due. Olympic silver medalist, a lot of amateur experience, only 15 fights in the pros. Has always fought, guys a bit ahead of schedule, and he's packed a lot into those 15 fights. I feel like he's gotten good experience in those 15 fights. A lot of Olympians and awkward styles and counter punchers, and a couple former world champions, couple former world title challengers, things like that. I think he has enough experience to step in the ring with Devin. But does he have enough maturation? See, with Keyshawn Davis, I'm not questioning his talent level. I'm not even questioning the experience level, even with 15 fights. My question with Keyshawn Davis is maturation. Will Keyshawn Davis stay out of his own way long enough to be and realize and become all he can become in boxing? Because when he's dialed in, like that last fight against Ben Ortiz, you guys seen it. He's a magnificent boxer puncher. He does have an educated jab, and then when he has you hurt, he knows how to close the show, right? And a lot of those things were lacking this weekend, but we've gotten glimpses into what Keyshawn Davis can be. So we'll see. Another interesting thing about Keyshawn Davis is the fact that, you know, if you fight Devin Haney, you're not going to be fighting somebody that's like smaller than you, right? Because Keyshawn Davis is big for 135. He was bigger than Baranchek. He was bigger than a guy like Pedraza. He won't be significantly bigger than Devin Haney, and even for Haney, right? Because people that don't like Devin Haney, they're always very adamant that Devin Haney only beats my smaller guys. So that's kind of the interesting storyline of it too. But if I'm Devin Haney, if I like, and I know Bill Haney's one of the best managers in boxing. I've always given Bill Haney his proverbial flowers as a manager. If Bill Haney sees something, which like if he sees what I'm seeing, and who am I to tell Bill Haney? Bill Haney's done a great job building this up to this point. But if you were ever gonna fight Keyshawn Davis, if there was really ever a serious ambition of yours to get that name on your resume, I think right now is the time to fight him, because if you let Keyshawn Davis get a fight or 2 or 3 more, however many more, it's going to be a lot more difficult, I wouldn't even let Keyshawn Davis get a fight at 47. Like, let Keyshawn Davis come to 47. I think people will look at. I think enough people will pick Keyshawn Davis and give him a chance to where if Devin Haney beats him, he's going to get a lot of credit. And then boom, you got back-to-back young, undefeated Black American fighters on your resume, which, let's be real, a lot of guys ain't doing that in boxing today, fighting young, undefeated Black American fighters, right? So to get 2 of them on your resume back-to-back, that'd be something for Devin Haney, a feather in his cap, and the kind of win that would really push him up a couple spots on that pound-for-pound list. Getting an Olympic silver medalist, former world champion, undefeated guy like Keyshawn Davis on his resume. So I feel like the time is now. I don't think he should drag his feet. I don't think Devin Haney should fight a voluntary or meaningless fight. Unless Devin Haney is gonna fight like a unification fight, which I'd highly doubt, because I've heard rumblings in the boxing world that we might just get Rolly versus Ryan next. So if that's true, those two of the champions aren't available. And then you have Lewis Crocker, who's scheduled to fight Liam Parle, right? And then even if he wins that, they got the big Paddy Donovan rematch in Ireland that's available. So my thing is, we're in a situation where a lot of the welterweight division is busy. A lot of these guys either aren't available or they're busy. And so if you're Devin Haney and you're looking to make a big fight, which I know he is, because love him or hate him, Devin Haney has always been willing to make big fights. His resume proves that. You don't gotta like the guy or be a fanboy to acknowledge what's painfully obvious in front of your eyes. Keyshawn Davis would qualify as a big fight. I know there's been rumblings about him versus Shakur on Zuffa, and maybe that will happen. But if that's not true, if they're not going to fight, the time is now for him and Keyshawn, honestly. And you know what? I'll say it like this. Maybe that could even be your last fight at 47. We know Devin Haney's talked about going to 54 for Xander, but I just think it makes a lot of sense right now. So I want to know what you guys think. Am I tripping? Do you see a future where Devin Haney could fight Keyshawn Davis right now, next? No move, no messing about. What do you guys think? I don't think it's the biggest fight he can get, but if what I'm hearing is true through the boxing world, that if we're going to get the Ryan versus Rolly rematch next, that means that Devin Haney's biggest option is not available, right, with Ryan. So in the meantime, go fight Keyshawn. If Ryan does his thing against Rolly, then that's 2 belts. You got a belt, so that's the 3-belt unification fight rematch. And then that will be there. If not, then you can go to 54. Go fight somebody at 54. Go try to become, what would that be? What, a 4-division champion? That would give you more pound for pound status in the sport. So yeah, I'm with all that. But anyway, let me go ahead. Let me go ahead and run through some of these comments, because I know I see a lot of you guys in the chat. So shout out to my guy right here. He says, shout out to Pops for the question. We don't need the brothers. Yeah, we don't need no boxing brothers. We need guys. We need the best fighters in the world in and around each other's weights to be willing to fight each other. That's what it is. You can still be friends. I mean, Maurice Blocker and Simon Brown were friends, and they fought a war. Did I see that Pusha T has went to the fight? Yeah, I saw him there. That was pretty cool. I'm a big fan of Pusha T and the clips. I grew up listening to them. So that was pretty cool to see. Albright has been a durable fighter, so I knew it was going the distance. Yep, pretty much. I mean, that was my prediction. I thought Keyshawn would win on points, which he did. I pretty much hit on all my predictions. I thought Keyshawn would win on points. I thought Brian Owen would blast out Josh Wagner pretty fast, and I thought that Kelvin Davis would win a very controversial decision against Pete Thompson, and that happened too. So, yeah. Um, Hey BT, what's your predictions on the boxing business in a post-Saudi world? Well, I've been pretty adamant about that. I pretty much said, look, when the Saudis were doing the super cards and they were throwing all that money at people, I told y'all that was a moment in time. And inevitably, they were going to have a period where they scaled back their investment, which they're doing now with Zuffa Boxing coming into the fold, because Zuffa Boxing is now the Saudis and Zuffa have a partnership. The Saudis are footing 60% of Zuffa Boxing. Zuffa handles the other 40% of the investment. I've been saying that boxing is going to go through a period where the market has to correct itself. I don't think we're quite at that stage yet, but we're getting there as the months progress. So I think inevitably the promoters in America are going to have to start working together more, which you're seeing because of all the promoters being on the zone. And I think you're going to start seeing more fights happen, because if they don't do that, then they can't survive. They can't stay afloat. Haney's best trait is weaponized drug testing. That's what everybody says, but you said it, champ, not me. And I'll leave it at that. Keyshawn under Womack was a monster. The current Keyshawn is so lackluster with his new team. He's very tentative now, throwing power shots. It's mainly just jabs downstairs, placing shots to score. I liked Keyshawn with Womack. We'll see how he develops. Maybe he needs more time with his new team, but yeah, so far it hasn't been the best. Key seems to be cloud chasing the big names, but it seems like he's actually looking to fight Duarte or Pitbull. I like the Duarte fight. My thing is, like, if he's going to stay at 440 pounds, I think the Duarte fight makes a ton of sense. Oscar Duarte is a legitimate contender. Duarte's fought Ryan Garcia, gave him some tough moments in their fight. He beat Kenneth Sims Jr. when Kenneth Sims Jr. was on a big win streak and was one of the top contenders of the division. And he signed to fight Hitchens, who's one of the best pure boxers in and around these weights. But that fight didn't happen because Hitchens he did what he did. So if that fight were to happen next, I love that fight. I think that would give us a good insight into Keyshawn Davis's durability. Yes, he's fought Mexican fighters, like he fought Miguel Madueña, which he himself cites as his biggest fight. But I would say Duarte's at a higher level. Duarte's a legitimate contender. Madueña was more of like a tough gatekeeper type guy. Shout out to Pac-Man. He says, "What up, BT? I think Keyshawn has the potential to be a pound talent, but he doesn't seem to be living up to it. I think he gets in his own way too much sometimes. His fault sometimes, not his fault. I just think Keyshawn Davis, like a lot of people in life, not just boxing, have a hard time handling success, and I think he's had a lot of expectations placed on him from a young age." And I don't think he's fully learned how to deal with that yet. And that's a process that every fighter has to go through when they start winning. But yeah, I hope he figures it out, because I'm a big Keyshawn Davis fan. I think he has a lot of potential to be a superstar beyond just boxing, because respect to Shakur, respect to Devin, respect to a lot of these young guys. But Keyshawn Davis has a certain way. The way he engages with people, just his charisma, his personality. I think he has something about him. He's got that it factor that could transcend just the hardcore boxing community. So I'm genuinely rooting for the kid. I really am. That win would make Devin Haney damn near the face of boxing. Well, there you go. I feel like that's a fight that Bill Haney would entertain. And he said Devin Haney tweeted at me. What did Devin Haney say? Hold on, let's pull this up. What did he say to me? Let's see. Let's go screen share. What did Devin Haney say to me? Let me see. What did Devin Haney say to me? He says, "You don't know shit about boxing." Well, I'll give it a retweet and I'll go to that later on. Shout out to Devin Haney, man. I'm glad that he loves True School Sports. Respect to the kid, Devin Haney. Funny thing is, he's saying I don't know shit about boxing. I would actually probably favor him. I would favor him against Keyshawn Davis. That's the funny thing about it. I'm over here talking good about Devin Haney, saying that he'd probably be too mature and professional for Keyshawn Davis right now. So I mean, do I not know shit now? Is he just mad because I picked Brian Norman Jr.? I was wrong. I gave him respect when he lost. When Devin Haney beat Brian Norman Jr. and Brian Norman Jr. didn't live up to my expectations, I gave Devin Haney credit. And I said, look, I said before the fight, if Devin Haney beats Brian Norman Jr., he should go in the Hall of Fame. 3-division champion. You're beating an undefeated, puncher at his, close to his prime. You're going up, you're fighting the number one guy in the division. I gave Devin Haney his due. So you know what? Even if Devin Haney says I don't know shit about boxing, I held true to my word. I made a post-fight review video. I said, look, I said this before the fight. I'm standing on it. Devin Haney's Hall of Famer. So God bless Devin Haney. That's good, though. Devin Haney watches True School Sports. That's good. And Devin Haney saying, I don't know shit about boxing. Does Devin Haney know that I had the most accurate prediction about the Ryan Garcia fight in all of boxing media? Because for those of you that really watch me, my prediction for Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia was Devin Haney to win that fight by disqualification. That was my prediction. And the fight got ruled a no contest. And a no contest is one of the closest things possible to a disqualification. So, I mean, I might know a thing or two. I knew the Ryan Garcia fight was going to be a shit show. That much I did know. But God bless him. He says, damn, that's crazy. You wasn't even live yet, and he was talking crazy. That's good. I fuck with Devin Haney. Why is Devin talking shit? He's probably just chilling at his house. He ain't got no fight coming up, so he's probably just chilling at his house, having fun. He's probably mad about the Norman fight. And you know what? I can't even get mad at Devin Haney because I talked crazy before the Brian Norman Jr. fight. I was going around Twitter saying Brian Norman Jr. in 7 rounds or less. So he deserves to talk his shit to me. I will give him that, right? But I give him his respect. Oh no, he definitely heard it. He definitely heard it. He definitely heard it for sure. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But if I don't know shit about boxing, please tell me why I had the most accurate prediction of the Ryan Garcia fight. A no contest and a disqualification is just like this. It's pretty close. Nobody else was saying that before the fight. So how did I know that the Ryan Garcia fight was going to be a shit show and be damn near close to a disqualification? Nah, I ain't mad at this. Shout out to Devin Haney. And look, Devin Haney, he's welcome to come on this show whenever he wants. I know he probably won't, but if he wants to, I'm very easy to get a hold of him. He's tweeting at me on Twitter. So, Devin, if you want to come on, you can. I got a lot of respect for Bill. Yeah. So we'll leave it at that, man. Shout out to Devin Haney. He didn't get a chance to say something to you, probably revisiting what you said about Norman. It is what it is. Listen, he can tell me I don't know. Listen, Devin Haney. My thing is, look, us as media, we come on here, we flap our gums. These fighters, they go to the gym. They hear everything. When these fighters are in camp, what do you think they do? They go on YouTube, they go on Twitter, and they look for motivation to go to the gym and train harder. And I gave Devin Haney a whole lot of it. So if he wants to say I don't know shit about boxing to the cows come home, he earned the right. He proved me wrong. When you prove people wrong, you earn the right to talk your shit. Do I agree with him? No. And I don't gotta prove to Devin Haney what I know about boxing. I mean, ask Angela Lee if I know about boxing. You'll get your answer there. Anyway, not gonna lie, in your first vid post Devin Norman, you avoided saying a single negative thing about his performance, even though a lot of people did. Yeah, I didn't like. I gave him his credit. I gave him his due. It's crazy how this live became about Devin Haney. Devin Haney, y'all informed me. Like I wasn't gonna check my Twitter notifications until y'all said Devin Haney's tweeting at me, so I had to check. But Yeah, like the minute he beat Brian Norman Jr., I said, you know what? I talked all this shit before the fight. I was adamant. Brian Norman Jr. 7 rounds or less. I said, if Devin Haney beats him, Devin's going to the Hall of Fame. And guess what? I stand by it. And God willing, I'm working on some things to become a Hall of Fame voter. And I think I will become a Hall of Fame voter in due time. If I get a Hall of Fame vote before Devin Haney is eligible to get inducted, I will give him a vote. So that's how consistent I am. A lot of people, they'll talk shit about fighters, but when they're wrong and they get the egg on their face, they're not humble enough to give these guys a due. I'm not like that. You prove me wrong, I'll give you a due to the end of time. Look at like I can give you so many examples. But anyway, we're not going to sit here and just talk about Devin Haney. I just want to say respect to him. If he fights Keyshawn Davis, I'll favor him because I think he's too mature, too disciplined, and too experienced for this version of Keyshawn Davis. Keyshawn Davis needs to really tighten up if he wants to get in the ring with Devin Haney, right? Because Devin Haney's shown time and time again, Lomachenko, Brian Norman Jr., who else? Just you guys know the names. George Kambosos Jr. multiple times in Australia. He knows how to win. Does he punch the hardest? No. Is he the fastest? No. Is he the most athletic? No. But when it comes down to it, he knows how to handicap you and he knows how to win, and he's effective. So I give him that. But nonetheless, guys, I'm going to go to my next talking point, which is let's talk a little bit about Kid Austin, because first of all, I don't think this fight happens. I think Golden Boy Promotions has their roadmap, their pathway for Kid Austin. I don't think Keyshawn Davis is going to stay at 140 pounds much longer, if at all. But for documentation purposes, let's go down to let's get into what Floyd Schofield's dad said. He said the following, and I quote: "They cannot mess with us. Kid Austin will knock Keyshawn straight to sleep. Facts. I thought Keyshawn Davis said he was going to knock Albright out. Smoke and mirrors. Now he's moving up. It's a lack of discipline. So there you go. Now, what I'll say is this. Keyshawn Davis did say many times to me and to many other people in the media that he was going to knock out Albright. He didn't do that. He was very adamant about it. He did not do that. He showed a lack of consistency, a lack of discipline. All those things are true. He won. The outcome was never in question, but he did what he needed to do, right? But he didn't do what he said he was going to do. He did what he needed to do, but he didn't do what he said he was going to do. As far as like if Keyshawn were to fight Kid Austin, like any Kid Austin fight at the highest level, I think Kid Austin will be very dangerous for the first 4 to 5 rounds. And I think from 6 on up, it would be like a really hard fight to navigate for Kid Austin. Kid Austin, what we see from Kid Austin is that he's going to be very dangerous early, but if you get into those middle rounds, those later rounds, you can do some things with him. I think the Renee Talise-Garon fight showed us that. I would have loved to have seen what Kid Austin would have done against Shakur Stevenson, but, that fight fell through, for the reason that it fell through for. Kid Austin pulled out. People have their narratives. I'm not going to get into all that, but, I want to see what Kid Austin does next because he's not going to Keyshawn fight next. I know Oscar talked about Kid Austin versus, what was it, Tank? That's not going to happen, right? Or at least I don't think it is. You guys can tell me if you think it is, but I don't think it is. So my thing is, Kid Austin needs to get a fight on a higher level, against an opponent on a higher level than Renee Talise-Garon. And if he can go ahead and show some different things in that fight, then I think I would give him a bigger chance. But I'll tell you this: what is he at? What is he at 140? It's not gonna happen because he's at 40, right? I think he's at 40, or is he at lightweight? Is he at lightweight? Or is he at 40? Let me fact check myself. I'm pretty sure he's at. Is he at lightweight? Y'all can tell me in the chat. I want to make sure I get it correct. He's at maybe he's at lightweight. He's still at lightweight. Okay, I keep thinking he's at 40 because Kid is not. He's a big kid. Kid is a big kid. He looks like he could be at 40, right? So he's supposed to fight. If I'm not mistaken, he's supposed to fight Lucas Body for the vacant WBA title. And then, so look, I'll say it like this. For me, Floyd Schofield, the fight to make is going to be him versus Mason if he gets past Body and becomes the WBA champion. I feel like those guys are closer in age. Mason Mason is a guy that his dad has been very adamant, like overly adamant, that kid is just all wrong for him. So I would like that fight, but yeah, Keyshawn and Kid, that ship sailed. But let me see. And by the way, if you're tuning in because Devin Haney, came here and or went on Twitter and quote tweeted, welcome to the home of boxing. Welcome to one of the best channels on YouTube. You go to that chat. They said, man, how does Keyshawn sleep at night? You guys are quoting Pops now. See, that's crazy. Pops got quotes now. Pops got quotes. Keyshawn and Devin are the same age. It's Keyshawn's fault for not stepping up. Well, he can still step up. It's not too late. I think they're gonna go ahead and they had different paths. Like let's not down one guy's path over the other. Devin Haney could have easily have been Keyshawn in the sense of being an Olympian, because for those of you who don't know, before Devin made that decision to turn pro, a lot of people thought it was going to be Devin Haney that will go to the Olympics and bring the gold medal back to America. Right now, that didn't happen because Devin Haney decided to turn pro at a young age. Bill Haney had a vision. They took him to Mexico, and then he won all those fights. And then they guided him in a very smart way to become champion and got him to where he's at today. It was a team effort, right? But Devin could have easily been a fighter that won a silver or a gold, and then you would have fast tracked him just like Keyshawn to a world title. He could have been that guy. So I don't think it's fair to demean Keyshawn Davis in that regard, because like I said, Devin Haney, I remember it. I remember before he was ever pro, there was talk. I remember a lot of people in boxing circles thought that Devin Haney was going to be the guy to bring back the gold for America. And it would have been cool to see, because a lot of these guys, since I've been here on YouTube covering boxing, I've gone through the cycles of, Shakur Stevenson was the guy to bring a gold. He didn't do it. Then it was Keyshawn in 2020 in Tokyo. He didn't do it. And then it was most recently, then it was Jamal Harvey. Jamal Harvey was supposed to be the guy from this last class to do it. He didn't do it. So maybe people were right. Maybe Devin Haney would have been a gold medalist. And maybe if he would have went that route, he could have been like the Sugar Ray Leonard of our era in terms of being that clean cut golden boy that wins a gold medal, that fast tracks in the pros. Maybe that would have been him, but we'll never know. It's a big what if. Oh no, I'm gonna stay live. I'm gonna stay live. And if you guys are here, shout out to Devin Haney for the love. I know behind all that is love. So shout out to you, champ. He said Ryan is live right now on Jimmy Fallon. Haney is not doing that levels. Devin's been on some big shows though, but I hear you. That's what I'm saying. That's why, like, I don't really view him as a 35 pounder. He looks like a 40 pounder to me, but he's not. I have to remind myself that he's still at 35. Well, he's not the champion right now. He is the champion in recess. So basically, that just basically means that whenever he comes back, he can get a title shot at whoever has the belt. If Lucas Body and Floyd Schofield were to fight tomorrow, that would be for the actual belt, and then Tank would be the mandatory. But y'all know the WBA, like, and I keep it a buck. I know plenty of guys at the WBA. I know Gilberto Mendoza. I know my boy Julio, who's the president of the rankings committee, and all them guys. But really and truthfully, yeah, they're not going to strip Tank. That sanctioning fees too much. So I've been to the conventions. They have these conventions in very nice hotels. I would agree with you, champ. I would agree. Let me see. He says Haney fan at the end of the day. Shout out to him. Hiroka says Ryan Garcia is the best West Coast fighter since the amateurs. I've been screaming this forever. He's very naturally talented. I mean, I've said that myself from seeing him train. I think he's a very naturally talented fighter. He just never really fully given himself to the sport. He's been caught up with all the glitz and the glam and things like that. But yeah, everyone knows he's very talented. You know, he's very, very talented fighter. So hopefully he continues to develop and becomes his best self. Because if Ryan Garcia is firing on all cylinders and he's doing his thing, it's good for the sport of boxing. But nonetheless, guys, let me see what's next. What's next? And make sure you all smash the like button. It is your boy BT Brennan Taylor, the untouchable True School Sports Empire. Make sure you guys support the channel. Let's get into some Lomachenko because Lomachenko is back. I touched on it briefly on the last live. I'm going to touch on it a little bit more now because now it's been reported in the media what the targets are. You know, guys like Gervonta Davis are a target, obviously. But now he's talking about fighting Vaquero Navarrete, which I think is interesting because Vaquero tried to become a champion at 135 against Dennis Baranchyk. That fell short. He didn't beat Dennis Baranchyk. Obviously and presumably, if he were to fight, if Lomachenko were to fight Vaquero, it would have to be at 135 because unless I'm wrong, unless Lomachenko is willing to make that weight cut and go down to 130, which I don't know. You know, he's 38 years old now. Quite possible his body's outgrowing the weight, but who knows, right? But anyway, we'll go to screen share. So here it is. Earlier today, it was reported that Vasily Lomachenko is reportedly targeting a fight with Vaquero for a Tank Davis fight. He only wants big fights. So if you're out here and you're hoping that Lomachenko is going to come out at 35 and target guys like Rammer, Ataya, or Abdullah Mason, that's not happening, right? Maybe Shakur Stevenson could be an option. I think that'd be pretty cool because they were sparring partners. But the names that are being thrown out there are Tank Davis and Vaquero Navarrete. Now, let's unpack that. We'll start with Tank. Because Gervonta Davis is a guy that he's got a lot of history with. You guys remember, Lomachenko was champion at 130 back in 2017. Tank Davis had a very electric, explosive performance against what's his name? Jose Pedraza. And at the time, he became the youngest world champion in boxing. And that being said, Mayweather Promotions had a calculated path for Tank. They said, no, we don't got to rush. We can take our time. And then Tank started fighting these guys like Hugo Ruiz and Jesus Cuellar and these featherweights, these guys that weren't even in the damn weight class. They took that approach. Tank was getting these crazy knockouts. He was building a lot of hype with the casuals. Also because he had the Floyd Mayweather cosign. And it left a sour taste in a lot of the hardcore boxing fans' mouth because they were like, yo, Tank Davis is in a witness protection program. He didn't fight Tank. Devin, if you're watching, Devin Haney, if you're watching, Bill Haney, if you're watching, he didn't fight Devin Haney. He didn't fight Devin Haney, right? There wasn't no concerted effort for him to fight Devin Haney or Lomachenko or any of those kind of guys. So people, this narrative came up with Tank that, hey, he's in a witness protection program. So that'd be a great fight. After all these years, no matter how many people shit on Tank Davis versus Lomachenko, people would be gassed if that fight were to happen because of the storylines, because of the history. And those guys are big names. Tank Davis is a massive name that transcends the hardcore boxing community. And Lomachenko is a big name within the hardcore boxing community, a legend, a future Hall of Famer, right? So obviously it's a big fight. Two very, very highly skilled southpaws. Why not? Now, I've never for a second in my life ever considered Lomachenko versus Navarrete. I'm intrigued because when you talk about Vaquero Navarrete, you're talking about a guy who just breaks all the rules. Like the guy looks like he does his camps at the local taqueria. He's eating tacos and probably drinking yarritos, but he just knows how to fight. He has natural fighting instincts. He's long for his weight class. He has reach. He's awkward. He has a difficult rhythm. He's an elite body puncher. He's an elite volume puncher. He's not, gonna be defensively like you wouldn't think of him as a defensive fighter like Shakur Stevenson or the guy that we talked about earlier, Devin Haney, right? As far as moving around or taking that step back, but he knows his range and it's hard to land significant shots on Navarrete because he knows defensively where he's at. He knows his range, and he's not known as a defensive fighter, but he's got good enough defensive awareness that allows him to impose his style on you, right? So that being said, I would love Lomachenko versus Vaquero because when you get somebody who's as skillful and as technically sound as a guy like Lomachenko, a lot of times these guys, kryptonites, can be a fighter like Vaquero, someone who's awkward, who breaks all the rules, right? Even though this guy's not awkward, he was breaking all the rules. Orlando Salido early in his career was breaking all the rules. So truth be told, for me, Vaquero to me has been one of the better fighters in boxing for a long time. He's on the pound for pound list now on Ring Magazine. I would love to see Vaquero and Lomachenko mix it up. That'd be interesting to me. You know, I love when you get technicians on the level of a guy like Lomachenko versus very awkward volume punchers on the level of a Vaquero Navarrete. That just produces very interesting scenes. So I love these fights, and you know, I'm not sure what Lomachenko's motivation is at this point. I'm not sure if he's just doing it for the money. You know, he's 38 years old, so naturally, my first thought is that he is doing it for the money. But Lomachenko has always been willing to step in and fight the best, and he's a man that only strives for excellence. So I'm going to give Lomachenko the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the same way I should have been giving Devin Haney the benefit of the doubt all these years, right? He's always trying to strive for excellence. And so if he wants to fight these guys, that's what he's doing. You know, he's holding true to what he does in the ring. So yeah, if it's me, I mean, obviously I'd probably want to see the Shakur Stevens fight more, just because they sparred each other and things like that. But if going off of those two options, I feel like I've talked about the Tank fight so much over the years. Give me the Navarrete fight. You know, Vaquero deserves to be in a big blockbuster box office fight, beyond just, you know, another Mexican fighter. Because if you look at the big fights in his career, like the Oscar Valdez or Sugar Nunez recently, like those are fights that are big for the Mexican fans. He fights Lomachenko. That's beyond just that, and I feel like he's earned that. He's been very exciting over the years, and just the style matchup to me is very intriguing. So hopefully, if I could pick a fight, if I could be the commissioner of boxing, you give me Lomachenko versus Navarrete, and I'd be all right. I could do that any day of the week. Anyway, let me go to the comments, man. We're almost an hour in. Shout out to everybody here who's making this live exciting. Let me see. Let me see. Shout out to Joel. He says Lomachenko versus Navarrete, my two favorites going at it. Big R. That's what I'm saying. Like, style matchup is alone. Forget the storylines. Forget like any of the legacy, potential legacy type accomplishments that could be added to these guys' resumes. Just the style matchup alone, to me, makes that fight stand out. Even though I know it's not going to make the money or get the hype that like a Tank Davis fight would get, because, you know, Tank Davis is a big star beyond just boxing. And Vaquero, like my man Jazz says, he has that weird timing. You can't really time a guy like him. And it's hard to even get sparring for him, because you can get fighters to mimic the Mexican style, which is fine, the volume punching come from Mexican style, but are they going to be as tall and as long as him? Even if they are as tall as long as him, you know, do they have that timing? Do they have that timing? It's not just that he's a hard puncher. It's not just that he's it's not just that he's a hard puncher or any of that, or a volume puncher. It's a combination of length, volume, power, and the fact that, like, you know, you get in there with him and he isn't quite as easy to hit as you may think, right? I think even myself, I underestimated how hard he is to hit cleanly on a consistent basis, because, you know, Sugar Nunez couldn't do it. I've given Vaquero the ultimate respect. You know, you guys know what I think about Angelo Leo. I'm part of the team. So, and even just that, I just think he's a guy that's a very good fighter. And if he gets the right fights, the big fights, I think he'll prove to you guys that he's a great fighter. But I've always said, like, Espinoza, Inoue, Bruce, those are all great fights. I respect those guys. But the guy that I think would be the hardest challenge to beat would be Vaquero, for the reasons I listed. He's a very hard now to work for anybody. Only way you're going to beat him is if, like, kind of like a Dennis Baranchik situation, where it's just his power is not going to carry up to 35, which, you know, that could be the case if he fights Lomachenko. If he goes to 35 and fights Lomachenko, maybe his power don't even carry up like a guy like Lomachenko, and it's just like the Baranchik fight. And in fact, now that I'm talking about it, that fight is probably what's giving Lomachenko the and his team the confidence to even name Vaquero, because you got to remember, Baranchek, if I'm not mistaken, he was part of the same Olympic team as Lomachenko, the 2012 Ukrainian team, which had Lomachenko, Alexander Gvozdyk, was it Evgen Kaitrov, them guys, you know? So that's probably what it is. I didn't think about that just now. That fight is what's giving it Egis Klimas and Tino Lomachenko the confidence to even name him as an opponent. Because I'll tell you this, if that fight didn't happen, I'm pretty sure that they're not mentioning him as a possible comeback fight for Lomachenko, you know? He says, Leo is my favorite featherweight. Loma and him at 128. Oh my God. Listen, man, that'd be sick. I would entertain that. That'd be cool. That's a big fight. That's a fight that will get his name out there more. That's a hard fight still. I give Lomachenko his due. You know, you're not beating Lomachenko unless you're, or even competing with them. Forget even beating him. You're not competing with them unless you're truly great yourself, you know. So that'd be awesome, you know. And mind you, the guys that beat Lomachenko, like Devin Haney and Lopez and Teofimo Lopez, those guys are bigger than him. Like, you know, Devin Haney's at 147, he's a champion there. Teofimo's been a champion at 140 pounds. Angelo's not as big as those guys, so to beat him at his like natural weight, that would be impressive. Only guy that's really done it was Orlando Salido, and a lot of people feel like that Lomachenko didn't have to beat him. So to be the first guy to definitively beat Lomachenko close to his weight, that would be an accomplishment. But I don't know if weight wise that's gonna work out. But anyway, we're almost an hour in. So look, I wanna just pivot into the next talking point because I just don't want to waste time, man. It's been an eventful day because I would say up until about just 30 to 40 minutes ago when Devin Haney just tweeted at me, I would say the highlight of the day on social media was, you know, myself and then one of the Filipino riders and my man Joel. We was talking to Oscar Colazo on Twitter. And Oscar Colazo, or Collazo, I use the Hispanic pronunciation. Oscar Collazo is on the pound for pound list. He's one of the premier little men in box right now, and he's a very good fighter. And I got a lot of respect for his skills. I think right now, if we're talking about pound for pound skills, unless Xander Zayas beats Jeron Ennis right now, I think the best Puerto Rican fighter in the sport right now is Oscar Collazo, unless Xander beats Boots Ennis. But you know, as much as I like Oscar, and I love Oscar Collazo, I've been covering him here on True School Sports since I think 2023 when the two Japanese fighters, the Shigeoka brothers, were champions, and at one point in time, the big fights were supposed to be Collazo versus Jinjiro Shigeoka or Yudai Shigeoka. Obviously, we know how that's went. You know, Jinjiro almost died against Pedro Tajaron, and Yudai retired from boxing to take care of Jinjiro. So they've been supplanted now, and Pedro Tajaron became one of the guys in the division. Oscar Collazo was trying to fight Melvin Jerusalem, right? Melvin Jerusalem just lost over the weekend to the new world champion Hughes from South Africa. So it's been frustrating because I believe Oscar Collazo could beat Pedro Tajaron. I do think he could beat him and become undisputed. But the fight he was targeting and that Golden Boy was vocal about wasn't Tajaron. It was Jerusalem, who he already beat. So people like me grew a bit frustrated, and we started to, you know, voice our opinions about, you know, the fact that, hey, like, you already beat Melvin Jerusalem, why not fight Pedro? Pedro, we feel could present some challenges to you. You know, obviously you're very skilled. But anyway, we actually got, and when I say we, I don't mean me because he wasn't even really talking to me. He was talking more so to like Joel. So Joel, out of everybody here, Joel really deserves the brunt of the credit. Hold on, let me find it. I gotta find it because I had this shit earlier. Now it's not here. But where is it? I just had it. See, hold on. Make sure you guys smash the like button while I'm sitting here looking for this tweet, you know, of Oscar Collazo basically calling out. Here you go. So here you go. Look. So right here, as you guys can see, Oscar Collazo says he tells Joel, who was in the tweets, that I can't wait to get that fight. But we were talking about the new champion from South Africa, Qs, and then Pedro Tajaron. So he didn't explicitly say a name. He just said, I can't wait to get that fight. So then I asked him, I said, Pedro Tajaron. And then to that, you know, Joel stayed on Joel and the Filipino writer, they stayed on Collazo, and he said right there, bring on that man. So I'll put the whole thread for you guys. He said, let me pull it up for you because I want to give Joel his just due. He comes here, he's a loyal viewer, but it was him. Where is it? It was this guy right here and Joel. They was pressing Oscar Collazo about the fight, and he said, yeah, bring on that man. I'm not scared of nobody. Please. So he's saying, look, he want to fight Oscar Collazo. He wants to go ahead and solidify himself as and further solidify himself as the man of the division. And I think that's great. I think people should rejoice and be excited about that because, you know, when you talk about the best fights in boxing to make under the featherweight limit, I would say that's one of the top 5. You know, Oscar Collazo is the most complete fighter in the division. He's proven to be that throughout his career. But Pedro Tajuron, he's the big time puncher. He's the guy that got the Shioka brothers out the damn sport. He's definitely flawed. He's got 4 losses for a reason, but he's gotten better since those losses, and he seems to have found his groove. He's really hit his stride in his career. So obviously, I make Collazo the favorite. I think he would beat beat Tajuron, and then that could potentially set up the undisputed with the South African, or who knows? Collazo might fight the South African first, get that belt, and then get Tajuron last. You know, either way he decides to do it, you know, Oscar Collazo has options. He could fight either one of the 2 champions, or he might just say, you know what, I'm done with 105. You know, I've already won the Ring Magazine belt here. I've already proven my value in the sport, what I'm capable of. He might go to 108 pounds and fight Rene Santiago, who is the unified champion up there. That's Puerto Rico versus Puerto Rico. You know, that's a chance to get 2 more belts, 2 division champion. So he's got options. I think they're gonna evaluate, they being Oscar Collazo, Miguel Cotto Promotions, and Golden Boy, and they'll go from there. But I think if I gotta make a guess on what I think Oscar Collazo would do next, I think Golden Boy. And this is what I would do if I was in a management position. I would throw a bunch of money at the African guy, Cuse. I would get him to come to the States, you know, or Puerto Rico, or whatever they feel is better and makes more financial sense, the States or Puerto Rico, and then you know, pick up that 3rd belt, and then get to Pedro Tajuron last because he's dangerous, and the risk has to match the reward. And I think the risk would match the reward if it's for undisputed, right? Now, as a fan, I can tell you that, you know, I would be over the moon if Collazo fought Pedro Tajuron next. But that doesn't seem like it's going to happen next based on how Golden Boy have moved in the past. But it's just good. It's good to see Oscar Collazo acknowledge the fact that he's willing, ready, and able to fight Pedro Tajuron because he wasn't really mentioning him for a while. So that's what it is. Joshua says Collazo is going to beat Pedro Tajuron, and I'm going to pick him. I'm going to pick him to win. I think Pedro is dangerous, but I don't think he's very flawed. You know, he's very flawed. I think Collazo probably stops him late and gives a skillful performance. Maybe he gets hit with something early on, but I think Collazo has enough tools in the toolbox to win that fight. But it's dangerous. You know, it is a dangerous fight, and that's why we want to see it. You know, when you get a guy like that who knows how to punch through the target, it's a fun proposition for a guy like Collazo to tackle. You know, that's what made it. And I'm gonna mention him again because, you know, he's over here on Twitter. Devin Haney. That's why people tuned in to Devin Haney versus Brian Pillman Jr. because Brian Pillman Jr. was knocking people spark out, and they wanted to see if he could do that to Devin Haney, and obviously he didn't do that. So people tune in. When you get a top upper echelon boxer versus a guy who's a big time puncher getting crazy knockouts, people are going to want to tune in because they want to see if the knockout artist can knock out the box the way to the other guys, and vice versa. They want to see the boxer can tame the knockout artist. Now, most of the time, the boxer will probably tame the knockout artist, but sometimes people fall in love with knockouts and the knockout artists. So, got to have more than just knockout power to beat top upper echelon fighters. Paul says, hold on. My man Cyrus says, minimum weight only has 300 fighters. Man, Oscar unified a middle school. He did. That he did. But I don't like downplaying fighters' achievements. You know, if you go in there, you win. You know, you can't control how big you are. Not everybody can be the heavyweight. Not everyone can be a heavyweight or middleweight or welterweight. Some guys are just born smaller, and he was he was definitely born one of those smaller guys. So yeah, I would definitely I would agree with you. You know, minimum weight's pretty thin. There's not a lot of minimum weights in the world. There's like 300 minimum weight fighters in the whole weight class, and I think at welterweight there's probably like what, like 2,000 or close to it. So you know, it's a deeper pool of talent when you're talking about the higher weight classes. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. We're about an hour in, guys, so I got an hour left. Make sure you guys go ahead and you smash that like button and definitely subscribe if you're tuning in. If you're tuning in because Devin Haney quote tweeted me and said, "I don't know shit about boxing." Welcome to the home of boxing. Welcome to one of the best channels on YouTube. And yeah, shout out to everybody here, whether you love me, hate me, indifferent. I don't care. I'm just glad you showed up. And if you got anything to say about the sport of boxing that we all love, drop that shit in the comments. All right. So next talking point, and I'm gonna and this is a True School exclusive because, and I want to see what you guys think about this because I thought this was very intriguing. You know, I was in Norfolk, Virginia over the weekend. I covered Keyshawn Davis versus Albright. And funny enough, Hector Ferco Hernandez sat in front of me. And for those of you guys who don't know who that is, Hector Ferco Hernandez is the manager of Venado Lopez, the former IBF champion. And I know Ferco. I got a chance to know him a little bit in the build up to Angelo Leo versus Venado Lopez. And I respect Ferco. I respect the hell out of him because he was a man of his word. He gave Angelo the shot at the title with Venado, and you know, we were victorious that night. But God bless him because he's a man of his word. He's a man of honor and a man of principle, right? But I had a chance to talk to him because you know, he had his fighter Christian Chacon on the undercard of Albright Davis, and Chacon was on the wrong end of a tough decision loss. You know, a lot of people thought that he beat Jan Santana and deserved to take his O. And I'm actually supposed to interview Chacon. I've been talking to Federico about getting on the channel, so I should have that interview in the next 2 or 3 days. But I asked him a question that I wanted to know because I was like, damn, you know, Venado Lopez is a former champion, you know, TV-friendly fighter, big-time knockout puncher. And Venado Lopez was linked to fighting Rafael Espinoza last September. I remember it very vividly. Venado was very vocal on social media about wanting that fight. And he signed his part of the fight from all accounts. And from everything I've heard, and it's been from more than one person, it was Rafael Espinoza that backed out of the fight. So I was like, okay, that's kind of funny because, you know, before Angel knocked out Venado, I remember a lot of the Mexican media and boxing fans in general were just talking about the fact that Venado versus Espinoza is the fight to make it featherweight. So I was like, okay, well, this is a chance to do a big fight for the Mexican people. Why would you bluff at the opportunity? So he didn't fight him. He went and he decided to fight instead a very limited contender, an Arnold K guy. Okay, so that was one end of the equation. The other end of the equation, and this is more recently because they were trying to get Bruce Carrington versus Venado Lopez done. For that, you know, it was reported for the Boots versus Zayas card, which, you know, I'm very surprised it didn't happen because, you know, the narrative is that Venado Lopez is a damaged goods, even though he hasn't had a significant fight since the Angelo fight to prove what he is or he isn't at this point, right? Obviously, Team Carrington, from what I was told, they decided to go another direction, and they're fighting Rene Palacios, which I don't think is a terrible fight. I think it's a good fight, actually, because Palacios beat the guy that a lot of people thought beat Bruce, which was Suleiman Sagawa. So my thing is, how is it that, and I'll call them the media darlings because Top Rank is behind Espinoza fully and they're behind Carrington fully, and these are the guys that I get told on a daily basis Angelo Leo can't beat, right? But how is it that these guys got offered a fight, a very good fight with a former world champion, and they both decided to fight guys with lesser credentials? You know, this guy's supposed to be damaged good. He's not that good, but they're fighting guys with lesser credentials. So I'm going to screen share, and I'm going to show you guys the tweet. I'm going to put the tweet on that Summer Jam screen. All right? I got it right here. This is the tweet. This is the tweet that I put out today. Shout out to Federico. Shout out to Venado. It says that quote, Saturday night at the Keyshawn Davis fight, I spoke to Venado Lopez's manager, Hector Federico Hernandez, and he just confirmed to me that both Bruce Carrington and Rafael Espinoza backed out of fights with Venado Lopez. He cited that the reason Espinoza backed out was because he was told that Espinoza doesn't want to fight any Mexican fighters. They tried to make the Bruce Carrington fight, but a decision was made instead for Bruce to fight Rene Palacios on the Abdullah Mason Joe Cordina undercard. Carrington and Venado know each other very well from the sparring sessions. So, despite a KO loss to Angelo Leo, it appears that Venado Lopez is being avoided by some of the bigger names in the featherweight division. End quote. So, very interesting stuff. And I'll tell you this, guys. It's very easy for people to say that Venado Lopez is damaged goods, but he hasn't had a fight of significance. I know he's fought a couple little stay busy fights in Mexico against overmatched opponents, but he has had a fight to prove what he is or he isn't yet. Now, obviously, he had the brain bleed. There's concerns about whether, he should even fight, period, which I understand. But if he hasn't had a significant fight since he got knocked out, you don't really know what he is, and everything else is just baseless conjecture. It's a guess, right? And I think it's fair to say, if we're being honest here, Venado Lopez would easily be the most accomplished opponent on Bruce Carrington's resume to date if he were to fight him right now. And I think, in my opinion, I think he's also a more accomplished fighter than anybody Rafael Espinoza has fought. So I feel like, boxing fans can do what they want to do, but I feel like there should be more criticism of the guys that didn't fight Venado Lopez, because I remember when this fight was supposed to be the biggest thing in the division. Before the Angelo fight, it was the biggest thing in the division. But Rafael Espinoza gets a pass for not fighting him and fighting Arnold K. Guy. I mean, I don't know. That just doesn't seem right. I know if it was Angelo in that position, you guys be on Twitter like Devin Haney is, and or here in my chat lighting me up saying that your boy's ducking him. But people don't want to keep that same energy for the other guys that that Top Rank is fully behind. So it is what it is. But I just wanted to put it out there. And I'm gonna ask Bruce at some point. I'm gonna ask Bruce, what his side of the story is, because there are two sides to every story. And I'm not even mad at Bruce, because Bruce Carrington isn't fighting a can. Like, he's fighting a good fighter who's coming off of a very big win against a guy that a lot of people, myself included, thought that he lost to in Suleiman Sagawa. So I can't even shit on Bruce. My gripe is actually more Rafa, because people keep saying Rafa's this killer, and he's a good fighter, but I don't think he's this killer. He fought Arnold K. Guy, a kickboxer, a guy that, Top Rank wouldn't even let Angelo Leo fight if we tried to fight him. So my thing is, all I'm asking for people is just for a little consistency, That's all. And I just wanted to put that out there, and I'll leave it there, and I'll dead it in the water there, and we'll have to ask some certain questions to certain people and get some follow-ups, but that's where I'm at with that. But anyway, shout out to everybody. I want to see what you guys think, because I got like 2 more talking points, and then I'll go ahead and I'll pivot into something else. He says, damn, I knew people was ducking Venado. They are. And that right there will tell you. What kind of fighter he is. People like to say like what he is or he isn't. Oh, he has bad defense, this, that, and the third. And yeah, he fights very unconventional. He's kind of like a lesser Navarrete, right? Awkward Mexican fighter, throws punches from random angles, heavy hands, athletic, but guys don't fight him despite the fact that he got put in the ambulance by Angelo Leo. So it will tell you that they know the challenge. Venado Lopez is a guy that, you can't, he's very hard to get sparring for and game plan for. And, like, I have my questions about Venado. I'm not even sitting here like fanboying over him for anything just because Angelo beat him. Like, I have my questions about him, like, because I know for a fact that, it's not going to be the easiest weight cut for him at this stage of his career at featherweight, right? So I have my doubts about if he can even make the weight healthily. But if his team are going out of their way to try to make these fights happen against other big names, I don't see why he doesn't deserve them. He was a legitimate champion. He's got 3 title defenses on his resume. He's a fun, fan-friendly action fighter. If you beat him, you now have a former world champion on your resume, which only enhances your stock. He's a big name amongst the Mexican fan base. So if you're Espinoza, that only enhances your name amongst Mexican fans. If you're Bruce, it gets you a whole bunch of new fans that you didn't have before. So I just don't see where it doesn't make sense. People have been telling me that BT, there's no reward in that fight for those guys. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Bruce Carrington fought he's fought guys in his career that wasn't no reward. Enrique Vivas wasn't no reward, but he found a way to fight him. You know. Oh, Devin. So for those of you just tuning in, for those of you who want to know what Devin Haney just tweeted me before the live started, because he tweeted me before the live even started. So he's probably still here. Either him or Bill or someone from his team, maybe Ringwalker Danny's in the chat. They probably watch right now. You know, it's all good. We got fans from a lot of different fighters, from a lot of different teams. So shout out to everybody who does support, whether you love or hate. I respect that the fact that you guys tune in. He tweeted me that I don't know shit about boxing, which can't be true because I had the most accurate prediction for the biggest fight of his career against Ryan Garcia. So he's tripping. What were my thoughts on Pete Dobson versus Kelvin Davis? The fight went exactly how I thought it was going to go. My prediction before the fight was that I thought that Pete Dobson was going to start very slow. He was going to pick it up towards the end. His experience would take over. He'd win a lot of the later rounds, and Kelvin Davis would escape with a controversial decision where a lot of people thought Pete Dobson won. That's literally exactly how it played out. So I'm not surprised. And shout out to Johnny Cortillo, one of the other members of Team Angelo Leo. He says Venado Lopez, he is damaged goods, and we're the ones that damage his goods. This is correct. This is correct. Leo and Shushu needs to happen. I'd love for it to happen for sure. I would love for it to happen. That's a great fight for the division, but we got to see if Shushu actually wants it, because Angelo Leo has shown time and time again he will step up to the plate and make fights that matter. You know, but again, like I said on the Spanish podcast I just did recently, you know, we're not in the A side, we're the B side. You know, top rank won't even get a Top Rank and Pro Box. They won't give Angelo a voluntary defense, so we can't even get a voluntary, right? So I'm not delusional. We can't dictate to these guys what's what. They're in the power position. They want the fights. We're right here. Venado is the ultimate warrior. I agree. You know, that's why I can't say anything bad about him. I can't say anything bad about Venado. He's been in plenty. He fought Lee Wood. He fought Ruben Villa. He fought Angelo Leo. He fought a lot of guys. What about Angelo Leo versus Jan Santana? That'd be a cool fight. You know, Jan Santana is not ranked in the top 15 of the IBF, and he doesn't have a belt. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but I mean, it'd be a cool fight. Angelo's not going to fight anybody that's not a champion or that's not ranked in the IBF top 15 featherweight ranking. So if you want to get an idea of who his next opponents could be, look at the champions or look at the top 15 of the IBF rankings, and you can start narrowing down your options. And that's what you got. But he's not in the IBF rankings. The only rankings that Jan Santana is in is the WBO. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's number 7 in the WBO, right? So he's right now in the pathway of going an Espinoza route. And truth be told, when it comes to Jan Santana, you know, I just watched him fight Christian Chacon, who's a good volume puncher. He couldn't even handle that volume. He's not ready for that kind of volume. But nonetheless, I digress. All right, so last two things, and then I'll go ahead and I'll wrap it up. I'll just freestyle it from there. 2 more talking points, and then I'll just freestyle it from there. But make sure you guys smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you're here because Devin Haney quote tweeted me on Twitter, welcome to the home of boxing. Welcome to the untouchable True School Sports Empire. You know, one of the best places for boxing news and commentary since September of 2015. Great to have you here. But anyway, this isn't a big story because this guy's not a massive name, but I still want to talk about this because I think this guy is a good fighter. I think I've always graded him highly I'm talking about 9 years ago. I'm talking about 2017 when I seen him fight in the National Golden Gloves. I'm talking about when I seen him at the Pier 66 in Fort Lauderdale knock somebody out with one punch in the amateurs. You know, and I've been to my fair share of amateur shows. I haven't really seen too many open class amateurs knock somebody out with those big ass gloves they wear with the headgear on with one punch. You got to really be punching like that to do that. So I want to talk about South Florida's very own Abel Gonzalez because it was reported today from the fine folks at where was it? No, I don't got it in front of me. I got this Richard Torres. I'll get to that later. Hold on, let me go back. Let me go back. Abel Gonzalez, though. I'll talk about Abel Gonzalez because Abel Gonzalez, he's the guy that hold on. Abel Gonzalez. Abel Gonzalez is a guy that, just like Antonio Tarver, he was a national Golden Gloves champion. And he's a guy that, like I said, like I alluded to earlier, I've been to my fair share of amateur shows. I haven't really seen too many guys I've seen some guys in the novice get in the novice divisions get some crazy knockouts, because when you watch novice amateur boxers, you'll see crazy things. Guys come forward, they haven't really got their experience in the ring yet. But as far as open class fighters in the nationals and things like that, when I've been to amateur tournaments, I haven't seen too many guys knock people out with one punch with those big ass gloves and the headgear and the amateurs, right? Abel was one of them. So look, this is the news from earlier today. Undefeated prospect Abel Gonzalez, 8-0 with 6 knockouts, who probably represents his Cuban roots, has officially signed a co-promotional deal with Zuffa Boxing, right? And I said it earlier right here. I'm not the biggest fan of Zuffa Boxing. Like, I'm not a big fan of certain things that they're trying to do away with. I'm not a big fan of a lot of these shows being at the UFC, Meta, Apex. There's a lot of critiques I could give Zuffa Boxing, but at the same time, I got to be fair. Zuffa Boxing is giving a lot of fighters who really haven't been afforded the chance at a real career, the chance to have a real career. And this is a guy that should have been afforded the chance at a real career. This is a guy that was a national Golden Gloves champion. This is a guy that even recently, Abel Gonzalez had a promotional contract with Frank Warren, one of the most powerful people in boxing, and nothing really came of that. And there's been a lot of stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting in the career of Abel Gonzalez. And I remember it vividly, being at the gyms in South Florida, circa 2019, 2020, 2018, seeing him spar. He wasn't even pro yet. Abel wasn't even pro yet. He was still in the amateurs. He was sparring, like professional guys that was pros, guys that were in the middle of their careers, 7, 8 years older than him, just beating the shit out of him. Like, and I'm not gonna name no names, but names that you guys would know. So I've always liked Abel. He's 28 years old now. Because his career has stopped and started so much, time has passed him by, and he's already like in his late 20s. But it's not too late. I feel like this is a guy that can shine on the Zuffa Boxing platform. And like this guy said earlier in my tweets, this is where Zuffa's going to shine. They're going to give fighters that are either too high risk and low reward in their career a chance, or fighters that are getting sat on the shelf, not being able to get fights. Like they are serving a purpose. Like whether you're pro Zuffa or anti Zuffa, you can't argue the fact that they're serving a purpose, because for every Lomachenko or Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson or Naoya Inoue or whatever, all these top guys, there's like 10 to 15 guys that may have some talent that just aren't going to get a chance or a fair shake. So what Zuffa Boxing is doing is they're offering a structure where that forgotten pool of boxing, that middle class of boxing that we used to actually have in the sport, they now have somewhere where they can grow their talent and showcase their skills. And maybe you might find out that a lot of these guys that you thought were middle of the road guys, they might have actually been upper echelon guys all along, but because boxing just, boxing promoters can get lazy and there's not really any talent development no more in boxing, they might get lost in the shuffle, and now they can show what they really are. I feel like guys like him are gonna do well in that, because think back in the day, like think back in the day when you had like USA Tuesday night fights. Even think back to the days of HBO, where all the promoters, whether you were Don King or Top Rank or Cedric Kushner Promotions, whoever you were with, you could bring your talent to HBO, and you had a place, whether you were high level, low level, or mid level, you had a place to actually bring your fighters. Like Zuffa, as much as I hate to say it, Zuffa Boxing and Pro Box too, but Pro Box just doesn't have the bankroll that Zuffa has. I think Pro Box has better boxing people, but they don't have the bankroll that Zuffa has. And ultimately, fighters want to get paid. And I know fighters, I'm not going to say no names, I'm not going to out no one, but I know fighters currently signed with Pro Box that are looking the Zuffa route. So my thing is, I think it's good to have not just one promoter that's trying to do some things for the middle class of boxing, but now we got really, if you think about it, we got 2 promoters that are trying to do something for the middle class of boxing. You got Zuffa and you got Pro Box. And we'll see who wins that battle. Obviously Zuffa has more money. I think Pro Box has a better staff and just product as far as how it's ran and things like that. But again, money talks and bullshit walks. So money is always the great equalizer. I think Abel's going to shine on Zuffa Boxing. In fact, funny enough, I know Zuffa signed what's his name? They signed Edgar Berlanga, and Edgar Berlanga is a guy that he's a super middleweight, and Abel Gonzalez, like himself, is a super middleweight, and so maybe that's a fight that can happen. But either way, I'm gassed. Abel Gonzalez, one of the talents from South Florida that I've been waiting for to just get on that stage for a while, and it's not through no fault of his own. A lot of times in boxing, guys, these fighters, you gotta understand, man, a lot of these fighters, they come from abject poverty. They're trying to get out the hood and they're trying to get out their circumstances by any means necessary. So what's not really a lot of money, promoters could offer them money for bad contracts. They sign it because they just want to fight, and they don't fully understand what they're signing. They don't fully understand the business of boxing, and they lose very valuable, precious time in their careers. So that's what happened with Abel. Hopefully this could be the precursor to a great rest of his career, and I'm definitely rooting for him because I've always thought highly of him. All the way back to 2017 when I seen him knock a guy out cold in the amateurs, with the big ass gloves and big headgear on. So good signing from Zuffa Boxing. They said, bro, what can you say to Haney? What I told Devin Haney is that he's a Hall of Famer. I talked a lot before the Brian Lovman Jr. fight, which is why he probably tweeted at me crazy, not knowing that I picked his Ryan Garcia fight more accurately than anybody in boxing media. But I gave him his due. And in due time, I'm going to be a Hall of Fame voter. And if I am a Hall of Fame voter before he's eligible, he will get my vote. So that's that's all I can say to him. Leo probably fights Nakano next, or at least he should. Decent money, easy enough win. We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. Nakano's a big money fight in Japan, but they're probably gonna order him to fight in a IBF elimination fight against Toshiki Shiramachi. So he'll probably want to be our mandatory at some point. But yeah, it's a big fight. Whatever happened to Tremaine Williams? Tremaine's a good fighter. Tremaine lost to Angelo for the title. Then he lost to Elijah Pierce some years after that. And from what I know now, I know he has a fight scheduled soon, and he's been training there in Vegas at DLX Boxing Gym. Good fighter. It's unfortunate that he didn't become a world champion, because I remember when I seen Tremaine Williams fight many years ago. I'm talking about even before I saw him in person at the Andre Ward Kovalev rematch undercard. I felt that Tremaine Williams was going to be a world champion. A lot of people did. A lot of people were very bullish on Tremaine, but he had a lot of outside the ring issues, from going in and out of jail to just probably not living the life of a fighter, and it did cost him, because this sport will tell on you. If you're not a disciplined professional, it'll tell on you. So he didn't become a champion, but he's still fighting, and I hope he can still salvage the rest of his career. Do you think the speed of Shushu can give Angelo Leo a lot of problems the way it did against Stephen Fulton? Well, Angelo ain't the same guy that fought Stephen Fulton. People love to pull that fight out of their pocket, and they never bring up the fact that Stephen Fulton never had a performance that good ever again, because Angelo landed 262 punches upside his head and gave him a headache after the fight. But to answer your question, no. I'm not gonna break down any Angelo versus Espinoza or Shushu fights, because I never know who's watching me, and I'm not gonna give him the sauce about what's gonna happen in those fights. But all I can say about Shushu is he's got very specific strengths, and he's got very specific weaknesses, and he needs to tighten up everything on all fronts. That's all I can say. Shushu don't have the volume, but his counter punch can cause problems and disrupt Leo. He can counter them body punches. I mean, he's a good body puncher. He's got some long arms, so he does some things that well in that ring, and I'm sure him and Kate Cromer are going to come with a great game plan, as will Angel Leo, Miguel Leo, myself, and the rest of the team. So when the time comes, we shall see whose game plan is better. But until then, just keep doing your thing. It was a great performance, but it wasn't like on that level. I'm talking about what performance did he have on that level? You know, he threw 1,200 punches plus against Angelo. He never ever came close to touching those numbers again. I mean, you tell me. I mean, Danny Round was a good performance, but it still wasn't that level. I feel like that was his peak, and he was never the same after that. He had some good performances, but that was like a very good performance. You know, he got hurt a couple of times early in that fight, but I thought he won a pretty clear, 116, 112 decision. Showed his class, beat Angelo at his own game, and he deserved respect and credit for that. They threw 1,993 combined punches, the third most punches ever thrown in a super bantamweight world title fight in the history of boxing. So it was a great fight. It was two fighters who stepped up to the plate and gave boxing fans a great world title fight between two undefeated young fighters during COVID, which is what boxing needed. So, and you know what? I respect Stephen Fulton so much, not just because he beat Angelo, but more importantly, when Stephen Fulton was trying to become undisputed and Mirja Akhmadaliev wouldn't give him the shot, he didn't just sit there on the title. He petitioned with the sanctioning bodies to fight Brandon Figueroa in a unification rematch, right? He wanted to get right down to business because a lot of people thought he lost to Figueroa. But then the Inoue fight came on the table, and then he fought Inoue, which in hindsight was very stupid because he didn't fight Inoue. He had, going into the Inoue fight, he was going in there with off of a 416-day layoff, which is less than ideal against Inoue, which is one of the reasons why I feel like he had a lot of problems in that fight. But that's my opinion. Real fighter. I want to give Stephen Fulton his credit for being a real throwback fighter, because I feel like people in boxing, when the guys lose fights, they're quick to shit on them. But he's always been willing to step up and fight top competition. So I'll leave it at that. Carlos Castro is better than Venado Lopez and Tremaine Williams. At what? At losing? At not winning when it counts? Nah, you're tripping. But if you say so, be my guest. I mean, Carlos Castro is a good fighter, but he never. You could say Tremaine Williams never won anything. That's fine, but to say he's better than Venado Lopez is freaking ridiculous. Venado Lopez would knock him out into like next month if they fought. And my last and final talking point, and I'll leave it at this. And I thought this was interesting, and I want to give credit here to my main man, the Great Chef of Boxing. Shout out to my man, Great Chef of Boxing. He's actually one of my favorite Twitter accounts to interact with on a regular basis because he's a massive Inoue fan. So generally speaking, I do agree with him. Obviously, we get into a lot of conflict whenever we talk about Inoue at featherweight, because obviously I think a certain way about Inoue versus Angelo Leo. He thinks is a different way, which is fine. But he's a great Twitter account. If you don't follow Great Chef of Boxing, go follow him, right? He tweeted something that I thought was very intriguing, and I started thinking about it, and I was like, damn, I could see that happening, because he said right here, as you guys can see on the screen, let me make sure I'm on screen share. He said, David Benavidez versus Richard Torres Jr. is a future super fight. If they fought right now, who wins and how? Which I think is interesting. Y'all can answer that in the comments if you want to, but I can see that fight happening sooner rather than later, because for those that know, for those that don't know, Torres is supposed to fight Frank Sanchez this weekend in an IBF title eliminator fight. If he wins that fight, he becomes a mandatory challenger for Alexander Usyk. I don't think Usyk is going to have the belts much longer, not because he's going to lose, but because I think he's reached a stage at 38 years old where he's going to pick and choose who he wants to fight. He's been undisputed. He beat Tyson Fury 2 times. He beat Anthony Joshua 2 times. He beat Derek Chisora. He beat Daniel Dubois 2 times, right? So what more do you want him to do, right? Like, I know people want to see him fight Kabiel and Mosi Tama, and in my case, Filip Hrgovic, but he's probably not going to do that. So I think the belt will go vacant, and it's possible that in the next year or so, Richard Torres could win a heavyweight title. And if Richard Torres Jr. does win a heavyweight title, I could see David Benavidez versus Richard Torres Jr. being a really big event. Torres is Mexican-American. David Benavidez is Mexican-American. Can y'all imagine the scenes? Do you guys remember how big it was, how big of a deal it was when Andy Ruiz Jr. beat Anthony Joshua and became the first Mexican-American heavyweight champion of the world? Or the first fighter of Mexican descent to win a heavyweight title? It was a huge deal. Andy Ruiz for like 3 to 5 months was low-key one of the faces of boxing. right? Until he pissed it away in the Anthony Joshua rematch. So my thing is, if you get a Mexican-American champion in the driver's seat, we know that the idea has been thrown out there by Turkey Al Sheikh that Dave Benavidez could move up to heavyweight to fight Usyk, which I don't believe in. But my thing is, if they're already talking about Benavidez versus Usyk heavyweight, why wouldn't they talk about Benavidez versus Richard Torres heavyweight? You know, and I think the fight would do crazy business because right now Benavidez, you know, you want to talk about fighter stock, you want to talk about a fighter's name getting bigger in the sport fight by fight. I would say the stock on Dave Benavidez is reaching an all-time high. You know, I've been very honored throughout the years to cover a lot of great fighters live, you know, be at a lot of great fights, witness a lot of great moments. And I would say that Benavidez Zotto performance, as far as fights I've been at, and I've been at a lot of them, you know, that's up there amongst the greatest. You know, you go to these fights and, you know, ringside, the media is supposed to be professional. You're not supposed to be there cheering or going crazy or having any crazy reactions to guys knocking out their opponent. But every now and then, a fighter will put on such a spectacular performance that even people press raw like, damn, even we got to have a reaction to it because it's just that sensational. You can't believe what your eyes are watching. And that's what he was against Zotto, right? So he deserves every bit of fanfare he's getting right now. And Benavidez is one of them guys. He's down to fight anybody. Youngest fighter to win a super middleweight title in boxing history. You know, light heavyweight champion, unified cruiserweight champion now. You talk about Benavidez, and if I'm not mistaken, Benavidez is the only fighter to become super middleweight, light heavyweight, and cruiserweight champion because, you know, Roy Jones Jr. Never became cruiserweight champion. And I don't think James Toney did either, right? So they skipped cruiserweight because Americans, you know, cruiserweight in its early days was viewed as a Eurocentric division. And, you know, a lot of Americans had the mentality of, why would I be a cruiserweight when I can just go to heavyweight and make more money, right? So he's the first fighter. Think about that. Benavidez is the first fighter in history to become super middleweight champion, light heavyweight champion, cruiserweight champion. If he fights Torres or Usyk or whoever, and he becomes a heavyweight champion, he then becomes the first fighter in boxing history to become super middleweight champion, light heavyweight champion, cruiserweight champion, and heavyweight champion, which to me is legitimate top 5 pound for pound stuff. So I think maybe not right now because Benavidez has some other fights that he can entertain, like Opataya, like Bivol, like Beterbiev. But give it a year. Give it 12 to 18 months. If Torres does what he needs to do and he gets his hands on a belt, the IBF belt, don't be surprised if this is a fight that gets looked into. And I want to give a great chef of boxing all the credit in the world because I never consider that, but he's being a visionary, you know? Anyway, guys, I've ran through my points. I've ran through all my talking points. So we're like an hour and a half in. Shout out to all 45 of you guys here. Make sure you guys go ahead and smash that like button and definitely, you know, take the time to subscribe and show all the love of True School Sports. I want to give a special shout out for the 10th millionth time to my main man, 50 grand, Devin Haney. He's a fan of the channel. He just doesn't know it yet. That's why he felt the need to go on Twitter and quote tweet me and say, I don't know shit about boxing when I have the most accurate prediction for his Ryan Garcia fight in the whole boxing media. But he won't tell you that one. Anyway, yeah, what do you guys think? What's on your guys' mind? I got like 20 minutes and some change. Maybe we'll go longer if it gets more lit. But I got 20 minutes and some change. Lay it on me. They want to know, did I pick Benavidez or Boo Boo? I was a Demetrius Andre fanboy, and I deluded myself into thinking Andre could beat Benavidez. But deep down, I knew Benavidez was going to beat him. What's your favorite weight class right now and of all time? My favorite weight class right now is featherweight. My favorite weight class of all time. My favorite weight class of all time is actually heavyweight. I would say, you know, maybe call it a casual answer, but I like the heavyweight division. It's, you know, like the old saying goes, when the heavyweight division is going great, boxing's in a great place. So that's the division I like the most. It sucks because one thing I've wanted to experience, I mean, and I got to experience it a little bit, but I just wish the American heavyweight scene was a lot stronger because all we've had for the last, you know, 10, 15 years has been Deontay Wilder, which was great. And Wilder delivered a lot of excitement. But we've had Jarrell Miller and Trevor Bryan. Like, who have we had? Jared Anderson. I mean, we haven't had a whole lot to talk about the last 10 to 20 years. Shout out to my main man, YSN Sports Media. He says, and I had a great time seeing my man Jamil over the weekend. He says, why does Debo got smoke with you? I don't know. I can guess, and my educated guess is that YSM. I talked a lot about Brian Noman Jr. So you know what? He earned the right. He proved me wrong. He beat him. He dropped him. He almost stopped his ass. He almost could have got him out of there if he might have stepped on the gas a bit more. But nonetheless, he beat him. And he did what a lot of people, myself included, very loudly said he wouldn't do. So I give him his respect. And I even said that I'll put him in the Hall of Fame. Because I was saying it before. I said it after. I'm in the process of becoming a Hall of Fame voter. If I get a Hall of Fame vote before Devin Haney is eligible, he will get a vote from me. So I don't really know I don't really know what it is specifically, but I'm taking a guess. I haven't talked to Devin Haney in God knows how long. I haven't talked to Bill Haney in God knows how long, but he felt prompted to quote to me today. So God bless him. Shout out to Jamil. He says the rise of NFL and NBA salaries killed the heavyweight division. It did. A lot of the best athletes, I think that's part of it. So the NBA and NFL salaries rising, that killed it because, why would a young 6'3" or 6'4" or 6'5" plus, heavyweight, guy with a heavyweight frame, why would he box when there's no insurance, there's no scholarship, there's no backup plan that comes with it? When you go to college, get a free ride, get your education, get your degree, and now legally get that NIL money, right? So that's part of it. I agree with that. The other part of it, I think, is back in the 80s, you didn't have as many Eastern Europeans allowed to compete in the Olympics, because communist countries and things like that, now you have a bigger influx of talent around the world. Boxing is more global than it was, let's say, 30, 40 years ago. So that played a role as well. And I also, too, I think a lack of investment in the USA amateur programs. I think hasn't got that investment. Boxing's changed a lot in America since then. So yeah, but that's definitely a big part of it for sure. Because why would I, if I was 6'8", if I was 6'7" or 6'6", and I could, if I had a 45+ inch vertical, why would I get punched in the face for a living when I could be when I could go be the 14th guy, on the bench for the Philadelphia 76ers and go make 7 figures? Like what some of these fighters make in their biggest payday, the trash, the sorriest player on your favorite NBA team makes that sitting on the bench. So I mean, it's just numbers. In the comments, they called you a Japanese dick rider, which is pretty funny because the Japanese fans say that I hate in a way, because I'm not saying he's fighting all this great competition recently, and I thought the Nakatani fight was terrible. So it's funny. The Japanese fans say I hate in a way, and then the people that don't pay attention to what the fuck I say about Japanese boxing say that I just dick ride Japanese boxing. So it's just funny. I was just telling the people in the media room, I get it from everybody. I get it from the Japanese fans. I get it from, people that like certain fighters. I get it from the Eastern European fans when I talk trash about this. I get it from everybody. British fans, I get it from everybody. No, I've never seen that. I've never seen that, but I'll check it out. But one way to look at it is there's less competition to become a heavyweight, especially if you're already a good athlete. And being American, you'll get a lot of backing if you got potential. That's true, but I mean, let's just be honest. Who the hell wants to get hit and get punched in the face? It's better to dunk a basketball. It's better to do that, honestly. Because in the NBA, to make the kind of money that you can make in heavyweight boxing, for the most part, all you got to do is get to the league, which is very hard. I'm not saying it's very, very hard. NBA players are on a whole different tier of athleticism. But if you can get to the NBA, You don't even gotta be an all-star. Just be the 9th or 10th best player on any team and stay in the league and be good enough, find your role in the NBA, and just be good enough to be in the NBA for 10 years, get that pension, you set for life. I take that. Do you think schools should have boxing programs? People don't want it because violence or brain injuries, but to me, that would make sense if any boxers didn't already start boxing at like 6 years of age. I I would love that. I think in America, especially like in the inner cities, think about, the grimiest parts of America. I think it would help a lot of young men get a lot of anger out, get a lot of pent up energy out, show them discipline, teach them courage and bravery. Like there's a lot of redeeming qualities about boxing, even if you don't become a pro or even compete as an amateur. Just sparring, you will become a better person be training to fight. It just is what it is. Um, I know like now in places like Japan, college boxing and university boxing is a norm. A lot of the top Japanese fighters have boxed for the university. Ryota Murata is one guy that comes to mind, and many other Japanese champions have boxed in the university. Like we have the Golden Glove, but they have university boxing in Japan. It's big over there, and I didn't find that out to probably like the last year or so, but it's a thing. And recently in Vegas, back in what was it, March, I had a chance to attend the college boxing national championships, which I thought was awesome. It was great. It was a great time, great atmosphere. There was actually some pretty good fighters in there. There was one kid I seen that was pretty good. I would like to see that become more popular because it'd be great. Wouldn't it be great if kids from the inner city or just kids in general, anybody who wants to fight, had a pathway to further their education and box at the same time? I feel like boxing could grow in a great way for that. But that's just my opinion. Yeah, Alan Picasso. He's a professional top, contender in his weight class, and he goes to college and he boxes. It wasn't enough to beat Naui in a way, but he's still at a pretty good level. Vladimir Klitschko, Calvin Brock, these are two guys that fought each other for the heavyweight title. They both had degrees. Um, Sebastian Fundora, I think he got accepted into Harvard Engineering School. So there's outliers in boxing. Not everybody in boxing comes from the ghetto and is from the hood and just put everything into boxing. There's some guys that literally are pretty smart, crackling bright people that somehow can juggle a world championship level career in education, which is crazy to me. Oh, that's a good question, man. I don't want to give you like I don't want to give you like a cliche answer. I really do think it's a pick 'em fight. Bivol is such a great pure boxer that I think he could tame the beast in Benavidez. But at the same time, it's like Benavidez, you let him get downhill on you, it's very possible you gonna get packed the hell up. So, and the thing is, Benavidez actually has some boxing skills. He can do. He's got some craft in there. It's not like he's just this plotting, come forward guy that sometimes people want to say he is. He's got skills. I would say right now, I would probably lean towards Benavidez. It's really hard for me to see anybody beating Benavidez, but if there was one guy that could tame him from a boxing standpoint, that's the guy right there. You know, like my man Jazz says, I use boxing discipline. I use my boxing discipline to get me through my electrical engineering degree. Never give up, and I agree with you. We people step into the gym for different reasons, and it's not always just about being world champion and making millions of dollars. I would actually say that's the if you were to count, that's not what it's about, right? Um, for me personally, boxing was just so that I didn't off myself. I was going through a lot of stuff when I was not. I told the story many times. If you've been here, you've heard me tell the story. 19-year-old kid. I walked into the boxing gym. I needed some guidance. I needed some direction, and boxing gave me that. And I was covering the NBA for a little bit when I was 18, and then boom, went to the boxing gym and then started covering fights in the local area, and I fell in love with it and never looked back. And boxing's given me everything, so I feel so indebted to this sport. But like, it gave me direction and just peace of mind that I did not have at that point in my life. For some people, it's just to get in shape. For some people, it's become a champion and make millions of dollars and change their family's lives. For some people, it's to just develop more confidence. Like boxing really will change you from the inside out. So if you haven't been to the boxing gym, I highly advise you go. A man right here says, I'm going to Rumble. And shout out to all 61 of you here. Make sure you guys go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and all that good stuff. I'm going to Rumble on the river at the pier, night 16 in New York on June 30th. Amateur event, making it a priority to get around and possibly pursue journalism. Well, look, man, if you get somebody else, I was talking to a young guy today, and he put on his Instagram, like, should he start a boxing podcast? And I said, look, if it's already in your head, it means deep down you want to do it. Don't wait for nobody else's validation. Do it because you want to do it, and do it because you're passionate about it. So I would say the same thing to you, man. If it's in your spirit, if God put it there, it's there for a reason. Definitely keep training hard, fight hard, do your best, and if you want to pursue journalism, journalism to the best of your abilities. Benavidez, Steens Bivol, he's off back surgery, a layoff, a divorce, and 2 better BF fights. He will definitely duck, possibly, and I don't blame him. Benavidez he's a serious threat for anybody. Why did you quit the 90-Day Alive series? Well, it was never supposed to be a prolonged series, Hyro. It was a one-time thing that I did in 2024 to challenge myself. I wanted to see if I could actually do it. I did it. It was very mentally draining. I don't think I'll ever do it again. But, thank you for the question. My man Josh says, I wish. And by the way, guys, I've got all my talking points. If you want to ask any questions, go ahead and ask whatever you want, and I will answer to the best of my abilities, and I'll figure out how long I'll stay on here, because it's already like 2:26 in the morning. But it's true school after dark. I'm a night owl anyway. My man Josh says, I wish Renee Santiago versus Stang Sox and Siri became an official fight. Me too. It's a good fight, and I give some Siri credit. He was another guy, probably even more than Devin, because at least with Devin, I thought some Siri was a lick, and I thought Sergio Mendoza Cordova should have beat him, right? But that's not what happened. And some Siri has proven to be a very good fighter. And out of nowhere, Santiago versus Siri has become the legacy fight to make in the 108-pound division. So I'll love to see that fight at some point, because I feel like both guys have earned the right to do what they want, and be in a legacy fight. My man said, I wanted to start a boxing channel, but I'm like your pop, so that you're very there's no diplomacy in your statements, I think that's what you're trying to say. I mean, look, man, it's difficult, because you want to say what's on your mind, but you still gotta be respectful, and if not, Devin Haney will quote teach you. Then you attempted it a second time, you did it. Yeah, but then I realized I can't do it again. That's what I realized. What are my thoughts on Team Combat League? I don't like it, to be honest with you. That's why I've never really made videos about Team Combat League. I don't think it's good for fighter development, because it's one-round fights. To my knowledge, now I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, there's not drug testing involved. So a guy can just get doped up and just go balls to the wall for a round and knock you out. There's a lot of knockouts in Team Combat League. They had a guy die on the first ever card. I don't think it really does anything for fighters' development. I don't think it's popular enough to build the fighter's brand or their profile. So I don't know. I don't like it. He's probably just bored. Like I know fighters. I know how fighters get when they're just at the house. They be on social media. They want to have fun. So respect to Devin. That's probably what he's just doing. Why don't they do Bonato versus Robesi? I don't know, man. But that fight makes a lot of sense, because that was a fight that, again, just like Bonato versus Espinoza, that was supposed to be one of the fights of the division. And now both guys have lost, and both guys are trying to find the way back up. That could be a good crossroads fight, a loser leaves town type fight. I love that fight. I'll be all for that. BT, serious question. What chance do you give Xander? I've seen his interviews and he seems very confident, like he knows something we don't. I give Xander a chance. I give Xander a chance. I think Boots is definitely the guy that has more to lose in this fight just because he's deeper into his career. People are expecting him to not just beat Xander Zayas, but like to quote my man YSM, who was in the chat, he has the onus on him to prove that he is what Cameron Duncan prophesied him to be many years ago, one of the best boxing managers ever, right? So the onus is on him. If Xander doesn't really have anything to lose. If he wins, he's a mega star. If he loses, he's still young enough to where people are gonna say, he took a fight that he didn't have to take, and he's young and he can come back better, and that's what it is. Boots has to win this fight and look spectacular because he's got so many fights already, and this is supposed to be Boots's launch pad towards pound for pound superstardom. So Boots is very explosive. If he loads up, I think that would give Xander a chance to see the shots coming and potentially outbox him. But I think Boots, like all the great fighters, I think when you fight guys that present a certain level of danger and the stage is big enough, no matter how bad you may look or how much you may have lapses in certain areas, for certain guys, you're gonna tighten some shit up. So I don't expect to see the Boots that I saw fight Karen in 1 or 2. I don't expect to see the Xander that I saw fight, Abbas Bro. I expect a better version of both guys because that's the kind of fight that this commands. You understand? So we'll see. They said, nah, man, you quite bad about Haney. I mean, yeah, I've said some things about Devin that weren't favorable. I admit that. But I'm also the one thing about me, guys, and I wish people would give me my credit for it. I'm very quick to give praise just as I am criticism. So if you go out there, you put on a spectacular performance, or you beat a guy that I didn't think you would be, you get credit from me. I don't. Why the fuck would I not give you credit? Is there anything that really disappointed you at the beginning when you were just starting to learn how bad the behind the scenes of boxing work? Good question. Probably one of the best questions anybody's asked me in a long time. I would say the one thing that really pissed me off, and I would say it was around 2021. And for those of you who have been watching me, you may remember there was a point in 2021 where I made a video and I said, you know what? I'm done with this shit. I quit. Done. And I think it was in and around that time because I was going to Vegas a lot. So I was meeting a lot of matchmakers and people behind the scenes. And I was becoming very privy to a lot of things that maybe you guys aren't. And when I started learning just about how much promoters have certain favorites or how guys are pre-picked to be superstars, and promoters will try to make these guys stars come hell or high water, even if they prove to not be until they get their ass beat. And then I'd watch other guys who I felt were really good fighters have to jump through hoops just to get a little bit of shine or a little bit of notoriety. And so just seeing that, seeing, and then I guess even recently, it really just dawned on me how all these promoters, all these matchmakers, all these boxing entities that we think hate each other, like kind of to parrot some of the same things Terrence Crawford said on a podcast. You think like Top Rank and PBC and Matchroom and Golden Boy all hate each other because of things said in the media, and then you'll go to the Fighter Hotel and you'll go to certain restaurants in and around the venues, and you'll see these matchmakers and presidents of the companies having dinner with each other. You'll find out that they're friends. It's that was probably like the real aha moment for me in all this, and that's why like now was yeah, I get mad about certain fights not happening, but like I know that there's a lot that goes into big fights happening, and it's annoying. So probably that. Y'all can't hear me? Oh shit. Okay, hold on. Let, let me come back. Okay, hold on, guys. All right, I'm back. So I'm back, guys. For those of you who said I was muted, what was the last thing? What was the last thing you heard me say? And I'll just start from there. And Cassius Kada knows. See, I'm not gonna give the man's credentials away, but Cassius is he's in the fight game. He's privy to a lot of things that a lot of y'all aren't, and as am I. So we see and we hear about a lot of fighters that get a lot of chess pieces moved in their favor, and of course they still got to win the fights and be good enough to knock over those chess pieces. But there's fighters that, to quote Angel Garcia, there's fighters that are made champion and there's fighters that become champion, and so we know the difference. No, they do. It's business. It's all business. All that hatred stuff. That's for us, the fans, to argue and build hype and sell the fights. 1,000%. And yeah, Afro Jam. That's what I'm saying. Devin Haney probably saw all the videos where I was talking negative, but he didn't watch the post-fight review when I said he should be in the Hall of Fame. I gave him maximum praise. I gave him maximum credit. I actually stood on doing what I said I would do before Devin beat Norman. I said if he beat Norman, I would say this. So, he must have missed that one. But that's how it is, though. A lot of these fighters, they don't like positivity, But yeah, I think the last thing I was saying is that I guess just knowing the fact that certain fighters, a lot of fighters that people get behind, obviously they're very talented. Otherwise, they wouldn't be the A side. The promoters wouldn't see the potential to invest in them. But it's like there'll be some guys in boxing, and I'm not gonna name no names. I'm gonna keep it to myself. But there'll be some guys in boxing that you guys be telling me all these great fighters, and then I just know certain conversations. I've been privy to conversations that with matchmakers and executives, and I get to hear about all the bullshit ways they get them these easy ass fights, and it's just annoying. Do I think Shakur Stevenson is made champion, or do I think he became a champion? I think Shakur Stevenson became a champion. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's a bit of. I think you could say it's a bit of both with him. But to his credit, a more mature man in the pros. Now, of course, he got to fight Joet Gonzalez for a vacant WBO world title, the top rank way, right? Layup style for him. But he's had some good fights. He fought Oscar Valdez when Oscar Valdez was at a good level in boxing. Zapata, T.O. And with Shakur, it's not just that he beats fighters, it's that he outclasses fighters time and time and time again. Now, are there criticisms? Yes. Could I sit here and say Shakur Stevenson, he hasn't fought a pure boxer before, so he's been getting styles that are favorable to his? I could say that before. You can nitpick any fighter's resume: Shakur, Devin, Sugar Ray Leonard, Canelo, Tank, Boots, Daniel Dubois, Teofimo Lopez, Inoue, whoever you want to pick, you can nitpick the resume. But in my opinion, yes, they rolled out the red carpet for him, but he's performed time and time again. I like Rohan Polanco. I think Rohan Polanco is one of the most exciting fighters in the welterweight division. I don't know what Top Rank's going to do with him, but personally, I would like to see him, match up with Brian Norman Jr. I feel like that's a really explosive fight that boxing fans and the welterweight and fans of the division would love. Why not? Do I think Jaron Ennis is mentally weak? That's the narrative. A lot of people say he's mentally weak. Rick Glazer has been very bullish about that opinion, saying that he has no heart. But for any criticism that I could give of Jaron Ennis's resume, one thing that I'm very big on in boxing, because I've been part of world title training camps, and I know the kind of I'm very privy to the work that it takes to get to that level. Anybody who wins a world title did something right, and you had to have a certain level of toughness to do that. So I'm gonna say no. Boots is not mentally weak, and he's from Philadelphia. To survive and get the reputation he got in those Philadelphia gyms, you gotta be somebody that's worth your weight in salt, and he's done that. So, could you say that maybe you feel he's a bit of a front runner and nobody's pushed him, and he's been fed for the most part very favorable opposition in his career? Sure, but he's handled it with a lot of excitement and a lot of dominance for the most part, barring Karen 1 and 2, he's done it in a sensational fashion. That's why he has all the hype in the first place. So I'm going to say no. He's not mentally weak. And if you're going to beat Jaron Ennis, you're going to do it the honest way and it's going to be because you're a fantastic fighter and you're a bad motherfucker yourself. It ain't going to be because he's mentally weak or he's a bum or any of that. If you beat Jaron Ennis, it's because you're a bad motherfucker yourself. Why are you guys saying you can't hear me? You guys really can't hear me, or are you trolling me? Eric Smith wants to know who would win between Diego Pacheco and Hamza Shiraz. Now, objectively, if they fought right now, I would definitely say Hamza Shiraz, because right now I think Pacheco is caught. He's having a bit of an identity crisis, changing trainers, not having good performances. But I don't think they're gonna fight right away. I think you're gonna see Pacheco more than likely fight a tune-up fight, maybe fight at the most a Jaime Munguia for a world title. Then maybe you'll fight a Hamza Shiraz in a unification scenario. I think Pacheco at his best can beat Hamza Shiraz because Pacheco is a better technical fighter than Hamza Shiraz, and just like Devin Haney and Bivol and Shakur, he's not as good as those guys, but he has that same quality about him where he won't fight outside of himself. He won't try to please the fans, right? And he's very skillful outside boxer. People forget that Diego Pacheco was simultaneously ranked the #1 USA and #1 American amateur at the same time. Every promoter in boxing wanted him. Top Rank, PBC, Golden Boy, Matchroom. They all did, So I wouldn't write them off. People in this sport are too quick to write anybody off. And guess what? I've done it, right? I did it to Devin Haney. That's why Devin Haney's coming at me crazy, right? But fighters are always progressing and regressing, so you got to always watch out for where they're heading. Having and this is Cassius, right? Cassius has skin in the game because he works with fighters and things like that. He says, having seen Jaron in the gyms, he's far from mentally weak. Anyone saying that doesn't know shit about boots, he can get frustrated at times, but he'll never quit on himself, and he believes he is the best. That's one that I can say too. Now, Cassius has probably seen Jaron. I know for a fact he's seen Jaron Ennis more than me because I only seen Jaron Ennis in the gym one time. But in that one time, I saw enough to know that he's not mentally weak, and it's actually the opposite. If you step in there with Jaron Ennis, you in for a real fight. So that's the funny thing is like people think I hate Jaron Ennis, and they think that like I have all this pent up hatred for him, but he's one of the most skillful guys out there, and if you beat Jaron Ennis, you're a bad motherfucker. Like you one of the top guys. And I got called recently about a particular fighter that by someone very close in the Boots camp, and they asked me if I knew a particular fighter, and I said yes. And they asked if they can get in touch with them so that they can get Boots from sparring, and I said sure, why not? Because if I can help someone in boxing and it doesn't affect my actual close friends that are fighters like Angelo Leo, Eric Lanzis Jr., those kind of guys, then I'll do it because I'm a giving person, But yeah, Jaron Ennis can fight. No doubt about it. Boots' first step-up fight is versus a 23-year-old. Please spare us. Well, I don't think that's fair either because he had step-up fights. The problem is he passed those step-up fights with flying colors. Like Stanionis, you could have. A lot of people were saying Stanionis was a step-up fight, and I thought Boots was gonna beat Stanionis, but a lot of people viewed that as a step-up fight, and now they don't. But to each their own. Interesting point here by Afro Jam. He says he feels that Diego Pacheco, in his opinion, peaked as an amateur youth. He doesn't have that self-belief as a professional. And you know what? That's possible. There's a lot of guys like that. And that's why one thing I've learned over the years, and I've learned this talking to a lot of really smart trainers, is that when you're evaluating a fighter early on in their career, you don't get a hard-on for their amateur exploits. Like you acknowledge them, they're good, but like sometimes it doesn't matter that guy was a 10-time national champion. His style doesn't translate to the pros, right? And what I also learned from from some trainers is that, you know, there are a lot of guys in boxing that stay in the amateurs too long and they burn out in the amateurs. They peak in the amateurs and they get to the pros and they never recapture that form. I can name you so many guys. I'll name you. I'll name you one guy in this live we talked about earlier who's like that. Tremaine Williams, upper echelon amateur, had all the national titles, blue chip, you know, surefire world champion. Everyone swapping down, surefire world champion coming into the pros. Never amounted to that. Part of that was discipline, but part of that, I feel, is also the fact that he probably did peak too early in the amateurs, and maybe he was a little burnt out going into the pros. You understand? So that's possible. I still think that Pacheco has enough skill, and I think with Buddy McGirt in his corner, Buddy McGirt's a guy that has a good history with long rangey fighters, guys that box long and keep it on the end of your punches, because that's the kind of fighter Buddy McGirt was. Buddy McGirt, think about his best performance against Simon Brown, a guy who came forward, kind of like you could say in Billy, and he was able to tame him. And I feel like Pacheco can replicate that kind of performance in his big fights. So I think he needs to settle in on one trainer, because it's been too many cooks in the kitchen. First it was, you know, Benavidez Senior for a little bit. Then it was like one of his amateur coaches. Now it's Buddy. So if it's gonna be Buddy McGirt, let it be Buddy McGirt. But I'll leave it at that. He's got to stick with him, and he's got to trust him, and I think it'll be all right. I saw your interview on the Casa Boxing Club. Good work. And shout out to those guys, man. Shout out to the guys on the Casa Boxing Club. It was my first time doing an interview on a Spanish podcast. You know, I've never, ever in my life ventured off to that side of YouTube. So it was a different experience. And I had such a great time that probably this week I'm going to go back on there again. But this time I'm going to go back on there with the IBF champion. So with the IBF featherweight champion. So stay tuned for that later on in the week. And check it out if you haven't done it already. I have tried to find guys for Boots to fight before BT knows us. His promoter was looking, and there was a time I helped. They wanted the best available. People just didn't agree, and they ghosted. Yeah, and listen, for all the things I've said about Boots, I know that it's not easy for him to get certain fights. It's you know, he's good. He's really good. For a time they weren't paying that much money. Like, so that's what I'm saying. You got to give Xander Zayas credit, because I've talked to and I've had conversations with multiple of the matchmakers at Top Rank. And I can tell you guys, not that I think, not something that, you know, I'm guessing. I'm telling you things that have been told to me by multiple of the top-ranked matchmakers, that they didn't really want Xander Zayas to take this fight. This fight is happening because Xander Zayas and particularly his stepfather banged their hands on the table, and they said, you know what? Give us Jaron Ennis, right? So that right there says a lot about Xander, because 9.5 times out of 10, when a fighter is the A side for a big promotion like Top Rank, and Top Rank having the track record they do with fighters, most of the time the fighter's going to listen to the Top Rank and just, you know, Top Rank will pick some guy from Germany in the top 15 who's like, you know, at the bottom of the rankings, do a voluntary defense, just keep building them up. But Xander said, no, you know, I'm here to be great. I'm here to make history. And I want the guy that they say is the best in the division. And Jaron Ennis is one of the best in the division. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to give him some respect. BT, do you feel like Team Haney will be watching Zayas versus Ennis closely? Those names seem to keep coming up in Bill's interviews. Maybe he sees something. He did match Bud versus Canelo after all, and he did. And Bill is a very smart boxing mind. It's no secret as to why Devin Haney has gotten as far as he's gotten. Obviously, Devin Haney is a true professional. He works hard, but Bill understands timing. He understands styles, and of course, I mean, I'm sure Bill's watched the Karen fight, so they'll take some confidence from that. I think if Xander has, let's just say Boots Ennis doesn't knock out Xander like a lot of people are predicting. Let's just say maybe Jaron Ennis wins a 116-112 or a 117-111 decision, but Xander has some clear rounds where he's moving and boxing and punching in between the shots of Boots, then I think they're gonna start calling for that fight more. Now, if Boots walks right through Xander like a lot of people think, then I don't think they'll call for that fight as much. You know, we'll see how it goes, but I do think it's a fight that does intrigue them. There's value in that fight. There's obviously a big name, you know, and it will be an even bigger name if Boots beats Xander in sensational fashion. if Devin knows you, I'm sure Bill has checked you out. Listen, Bill and Devin both definitely know me, especially Bill. I interviewed Bill Haney back in 2020 at the Demetrius Andre Luke Keeler card. He was there. I interviewed Bill Haney in 2021, 2022. I don't know about now, but I know at one particular point, Bill Haney was subscribed to this channel, right? Bill knows who I am. Devin knows who I am. I've been in the gym with them before, once or twice. So yeah, they definitely know. But yeah, listen, Bill and Devin, I'm here, and I've been here since September 5th, 2015. So that'll be 11 years in September of this year. I ain't gone nowhere. So if you guys ever want to come on and y'all want to talk, if y'all want to hash out some of your feelings about whatever it is you may feel, I'm here. BT, how do you feel about Andy Hiroka versus someone like Rohan Polanco or Brian Norman Jr.? He is cool with moving up. I love that fight. Andy Hiroka versus any puncher is a fun fight. That's a good question. How do I feel about that? We haven't seen Andy at 47. I feel like he has the frame to probably have that power carry up to 47, but it's hard. You don't know until you know. Now, Norman, I like Norman, as Devin Haney knows, and how a lot of you guys know. Brian Norman Jr. is one of my favorite fighters in boxing. I love Brian Norman Jr. and I still like Brian Norman Jr. even though Devin Haney beat him, exposed him. I gotta be honest. But Brian Norman Jr. ain't the most durable guy. He's been dropped by Janelson Figueroa. He's been dropped by Devin Haney. Jin's punches were getting his attention. The handful of times he did get some shots in on him. Durability ain't his skill set. It's not his number one trait. So that's a winnable fight for Andy. I can't really put too much stock into the Josh Wagner fight because Josh Wagner is Josh Wagner. He's a Canadian club fighter who had been shut out by Harlem Eubank. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about that fight. That'd be a good one. Polanco, I feel that's probably a tougher fight. Who is the nicest boxer you met that is not your friend? That's a good question. The nicest boxer that I met, Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman was pretty cool. Who else? Ryan Garcia was cool. Oh, you know what? People might not believe this. Gervonta Davis. At one point in time, I had a perception of Tank, and I got to cover him, and he's pretty cool. Him, people, at one point in time, I was internationally known for being a Canelo hater. Canelo, seeing how professional and how Canelo goes about his business made me really respect him. My man Kato mentioned Sego Yuriakui. He's one of the top 5 nicest boxers I'll ever meet. Like, dude treated me and my translator like we were royalty when me and my boy Taihei went out to Okayama, Japan. He was great. Brian Norman Jr. was really cool. Who else was really cool? Devin was cool. A handful of times I met him. Who else? Shannon Briggs was cool back in the day. There's just so many guys. BT, what did you make of Deontay Tanner's performance? Shushu took a shot at him post fight next. Would you want to see that? Would you want to see that fight next, or does John need more seasoning? I would like to see the fight next, but I'm also like, I'm not unrealistic. He's not ranked in the WBC and he's not a champion. So in order for that fight to happen, Bruce Carrington would have to jump through a bunch of hoops to make that fight happen. And I don't think Bruce Carrington needs to jump through a bunch of hoops to make that fight happen. Like, he can go for Unify or fight somebody else in the rankings. Now, if he gets ranked, it's a different type of conversation. But right now, he's only ranked top 15 in the WBO. You understand? So that's the route he has to go. If he wants, if Steon Santana wants to get a championship fight based on how things presently are, the WBO route in Espinoza is the route he should be going. Gerard Ennis was very nice to me in Philadelphia. He's another one. Who else is like really cool? I'm trying to think who else is pretty cool. Broner was really cool when I met him. Spence was very cool. I'm looking at my credentials to give myself ideas. Blair Cobbs was cool. Alexis Rocha was cool. Most boxers are pretty cool. Like, boxers are the most noble athletes on earth. And part of the reason why when I was a young man, 31 now, but when I was 18, 19, I I one of the reasons why I stuck around in boxing is because they're not like NBA players are kind of stuck up. You know, they got everyone telling them they're great. They're 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 7 feet tall. So they're like outliers. People, they get treated like outliers from a very young age, and they develop very big heads. Boxers ain't like that. These guys can knock you the fuck out one punch, and they some of the coolest, most chillest, most down to earth people you'll ever meet. That's why even like people, fighters that you guys don't even think are cool. Hitchens, people have a perception of Hitchens, and he was cool when I met him. Like, the question is, who did you meet that was uncool? I don't want to out nobody. I'm not in the mood to talk bad about nobody, to be honest. I respect all the careers. What do you think about Bruce Carrington's next opponent? He'll be fighting here in Cleveland in July. Um, I made a video about this fight earlier today, but I haven't posted it yet, so I'll give you guys my early thoughts here. Good fight. It would be very easy for me as a member of a rival champions team to criticize any and everything Bruce Carrington does, but I'm not disingenuous. If he's fighting a good opponent, I'll tell you. I think Rene Palacios is a good opponent. I think it's actually one of the best opponents he's ever fought. Now, does Palacios have this extensive resume? No, he doesn't. But what Rene Palacios does have is a win against a fighter that a lot of people, myself included, thought beat Bruce Carrington in Suleiman Sagawa. And Palacios is a southpaw come forward fighter. He's very athletic. He's fresher and younger than a guy like Venado Lopez, who was offered to him. So while I could say Bruce Carrington ducked or avoided Venado Lopez, I'm genuine. I'm honest. I'm sincere. He's fighting a good young fighter, a good live fighter, and it's his first title defense. And one thing I know about this fight game is that anytime a fighter wins a world title, that first title defense is always a big moment, because when a fighter first puts on their gloves, they think about that moment when they become world champion for the first time, and they hit this high. So naturally, your next fight, you're not going to fight somebody with a big name, and you can't have a letdown. And a lot of fighters have lost the world title on their first defense for that exact reason. So my thing is, if he goes in there against Palacios, a guy that beat the guy that a lot of people thought beat him in Sagawa, if he goes in, let's just say Shushu stops him in like 5 rounds or less, that's a statement to me. If he stops him, period, that's a statement to me, because I could be wrong, but I believe Palacios is undefeated. I'm pretty sure he's undefeated. So even on paper, even though if I was a hater, I would criticize him for not fighting Venado Lopez. However, on paper, Palacios has a better record in terms of how it looks. He's 19-0. Venado's already lost to Ruben Villa. Venado's already lost to Angelo Leo. He's already lost to Abraham Montoya. So I think it's a good fight. I think it's a solid first defense. And if he beats him in devastating fashion, then I would view it as a good win. Now, my man, the nobody, he's asking me a baseball question. I don't know why he's asking me a baseball question, but I'll answer. He says, "What are your thoughts on the Marlins this season? I'm shocked that Yuri Perez is struggling the way he is. I thought he was going to be elite." I had mixed feelings about the Marlins this year, because I feel like the Marlins should be better than the record indicates. I think the Marlins record right now is like 22-26 or 22-25. They're like 4 or 5 under. They're like 4 games or 5 games under 500. They started off the season 5-1. I think we have the best lineup we've had in a long time in terms of scoring runs. We always have pitching, but I think the one thing holding this team back is just the incompetence of Clayton McCullough, the manager. He's terrible. He's one of the worst managers we've had in years, and that's saying something, because we've had some terrible managers. Still early in the season, maybe the Marlins turn it around. But as far as Yuri Perez, from what I've watched him pitch, and I've watched him pitch a good amount, he's too reliant upon strikeouts. He hasn't learned yet how to pitch to contact. And when you're a big, imposing 6'8" pitcher like him, there's a learning curve with learning how to pitch to contact. So once he figures that part of his game out, if he ever figures it out, he's going to be a top level front end type of starter. But Marlins doing okay. I'm hoping the Marlins could catch some fire here in late May, early June, and make a run, because I want to see the Marlins be good again. Life is better. Colors are brighter. The air is different when the Marlins are actually competitive playing baseball. So I'll leave it at that. What do you think of the Mongolian fighter on Pro Box, Erdenabak? Good fighter. He's actually he sparred one of my good friends, Eric Lantis Jr. I took my boy Eric out there to LA back in 2024 and got him some sparring with him. So I got a close up look of him. Good fighter. Southpaw, can box a little bit, physically strong. Definitely a legit contender. I like him. NBA players do not live in the same reality as the rest of the world. Like, these guys are 6'7", 6'8", 7 feet tall. They're getting paid 7 figures, and some of them are not even good. Like, I'm a Charlotte Hornets fan, so I know all about sorry ass NBA players getting overpaid. But they're better than me and you at basketball. But in the grand scheme of the NBA, I've seen some pretty terrible basketball players get paid $100 million, right? So they're not living in a reality, right? It's just different. It's just different. Dude, the guy barely beats the guy himself. He just had he had just as bad of a case as Bruce to lose that fight. I don't think so. I thought he made it a little closer than Bruce, just because he was able to close the gap and win some moments in the win more moments in the pocket and impose his game plan more than Bruce did when he fought Sagawa. But to your point, I actually thought Sagawa won the fight. I thought he did enough to win. They didn't give it to him. That's boxing. Do I think the Marlins will trade Sandy Alcantara? I think they should. I think the Marlins should. I mean, a lot of Marlins fans had a lot of newer Marlins fans that didn't actually see the Marlins when they were good and won the World Series 20 plus years ago. They had this attachment to Sandy Alcantara. To me, I'm like, man, you ain't no Don Willis. You ain't Josh Beckett. You ain't Josh Johnson. You cool. But Sandy, last year when we kept his ass and we was in the damn playoff race, he started pitching like dog shit down the stretch. So I'm cool on Sandy. Get a good haul from him while you can. Is Japan the only country you've been to in relation to boxing? No. Every country I've been to in my life has, in one way or the other, been through boxing. The other two countries I've been to, I went to Nicaragua in 2024 to go support my boy Eric Lantis Jr. I was there for like maybe 4 days. That was an experience. And then in 2019, I was in the UK for a month, but like, it was a very poorly planned trip. I was young, I was stupid, I had a lot of things going on in my life, so I didn't get to see everything I wanted to see. But speaking of UK boxing, I want to say, because I just caught wind of this the other day, somebody commented on my video about him, my interview with him. Rest in peace to Pat Benson, man. Pat Benson, one of the coaches I interviewed in the UK. Not a big name coach. Didn't really coach anybody with a massive name. I think he might have been Matthew Macklin's amateur coach for a very brief amount of time. But local coach in the Birmingham area, had a chance to interview him. He gave a lot of his time to people, and he impacted a lot of lives over there. So rest in peace to him. I only met him one time when I was there. I interviewed him that one time. That was our one interaction, but he was a lovely man, and he was one of those guys that really gave his contribution in his life to this sport and impacted a lot of lives. So may God rest his soul and bless his family. But yeah, the UK and Nicaragua, those are the two countries I've been to. If Philip Hrgovic fights Dubois or Mosley Itama, I'm going to be back in the UK because I'm going to go support my boy Hrgovic. I also want to go to Africa at some point, and Canada and Mexico. So, Africa, Canada, Mexico, those are the 3 countries on my list I haven't gone to that I want to do for like boxing, I agree. God bless Pat Benson, and shout out to the whole Pat Benson Boxing Academy out there in Birmingham, UK. I had a chance to go there in 2019. BT, do you think Cuse and Jerusalem should do a trilogy? South African boxing seems to be on the rise. Well, South African boxing, a lot of people don't know that South African boxing has always had its place in boxing. They produced 33 world champions in the history of boxing, and they always had a presence in the lighter weight categories. But yes, they had a lot of success recently. Personally, if the money's right, of course, Cuse versus Jerusalem makes a lot of sense because the first two fights have made a lot of noise in the fight game. But again, Asa Colazo is backed by Golden Boy. If Golden Boy is smart, like if I was Miguel Cotto Promotions or Golden Boy, I'm backing up the Brinks truck and I'm offering Cuse that unification money to come to the States. And then you get Colossal that third belt, and then boom. Now this fight that everyone said you're ducking with Tajiron, bam. You got it now being an undisputed fight. And yes, I'm sorry. The continent of Africa. So Nigeria, Congo, South Africa, Ghana, Namibia, all these countries. I have ambition to go there one day, the same way I've done for Japan, because a lot of y'all don't know I have a very deep respect for African fighters, because I hear people complain about, oh, the Mexican fighters get treated the worst, or they have the short end of the stick. The Black Americans get the short end of the stick. And true, in my opinion, all that is bullshit. The fighters that have the most to overcome in the fight game, and I've seen it talking to managers and promoters and things like that, are African fighters. They don't have that much resources. They don't have the built-in fan bases that countries like America or Mexico have. A lot of times, the African fighters got to go through the mandatory system. Then they become mandatory. Then they had to play the waiting game. So whenever you see an African fighter break through, become world champion, to me, that's like one of the most organic levels of success you can see in boxing. So I have a lot of respect for them, because I've been privy and I've seen what they've gone through behind the scenes. BT, if you come back to the UK, DM me. I live here now. Okay, I'll let you know. Are you in London, or you don't gotta tell me? You can DM me where you're at. You don't want nobody knowing. But why Canada? Canada doesn't have history of elite boxing. Lucas Body is the best fighter at the moment. I'm not counting Beterbiev as one of them. Well, first and foremost, I think you're wrong. I think Canada does have a lot of things to go see. I know people in Canada, great box people in Canada. Canada's right there. I mean, Japan is all the way over the hell over there. The UK is all the way over the hell over there. Canada is right there, So I would love to go visit Canada and see what, Canada has to offer in terms of boxing, and maybe go catch some club shows and go interview some of the guys out there. And I know people out there, so it'd be cool. It'd be a good experience. Why do you think Kameda shows keep getting canceled? I'm trying to figure that out myself, because I've been seeing a lot of people tweet about the Kamedas and them losing money, and probably maybe the Kamedas are having financial problems. I don't know. But it is very suspicious. What are my favorite boxing related books? That's a good question. My favorite boxing related book, one of the books that I read when I was a kid, that really got me like involved with boxing, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was the Joe Louis story, because I was a big Joe Louis fan, and I'm still a big Joe Louis fan. You know, just anything, basically anything, any book you can find about Joe Louis, or the Boxing Encyclopedia, or anything that Bert Sugar wrote. So anything like that. Oh, he's in London. Okay, shout out to London. Yeah, I didn't get too much time in London last time. I was in mostly Birmingham, West Brom, all places, very niche ass places in the UK. But that's a story for another day. I'd love to see it. I want to go to Liverpool and Manchester and London and all that stuff. So it's definitely on my list. Hopefully Philip Hergovich fights Daniel Dubois. I don't want to see that Moses fight, because I don't think it makes any sense for him right now. But hopefully Hergovich fights Daniel Dubois in the UK for the WBO title in a rematch, and I will be there. He says, BT, you should review Boxing Gems. I didn't see. I didn't even know that my boy, Boxing Gems had a book, so I'm gonna have to go check that out. Shout out to Boxing Gems. He's a guy. I don't see him in the chat as much now, but I remember, 2022, 2023. He used to be here a lot in the super chats. He's a great guy, great boxing mind, and I know he works with fighters, film studying, game planning. So respect to him. He's someone that's contributed some great things to this fight game. I mentioned it earlier. The Cometas have been using it to profit on crypto and trading it, which is extremely unreal. It is. It 1000% is. Speaking as somebody who's dabbled in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and things like that, it is super volatile. All right, super volatile. So it's no bueno. Would you like to collab with? Would you like to collab with the dude that makes boxing videos, Tony Jeffries? I don't think he gets into politics or shares his opinions, but it might be interesting. Listen, man. Anybody? I've actually reached a stage where I'm open to any and all collaborations. I like collaborating. I've really been enjoying it. I've done a couple recently, with Spanish channels. I got interviewed by this one guy in New Mexico named Mike Adams, who's like really known out there. Like he used to work for ESPN Albuquerque. That'll be out soon. Obviously, I do the stuff with Sean Tell. So I'm enjoying the collabs. So if anybody's, as long as they're respectful and they're not speaking crazy in my name, and we can have good civil boxing discourse, shit, I'm all for it. Hell yeah. So he says from the end of last year, Psycho, Lush, and 3150 have separated, causing a loss of fun. That's what I thought. I knew it was money related because they had all these really good cards planned with really good fights and notable names. I'm like, damn, the 3150 Promotions is really like starting to make a name in the Japanese boxing space. And now that's not going to happen. So we'll see. Now, Cassius Keita said that we need to have me on the commentary. Now, look, I'll be honest with you guys. I did commentary one time for the inaugural Glenn Johnson Road Warrior Promotions card like 5 years ago. I can do it. It's not necessarily my thing. But again, if the right offer came and it made sense, I'd do it. I know IBB Boxing starting up, and they need some they need some commentators. So shit, Ed Pereira, talk to me, champ. Sano was having a mental crisis now, partly caused by the fights that keep getting canceled. Yeah, I had a chance to meet Ayumu Sano at the WBA convention a couple months ago. Nice young kid. Seemed like he was serious about his boxing. When I interviewed him, he talked about wanting to fight Tenshin and Junto and these kind of guys. And he was supposed to fight who? Who was supposed to fight? David Jimenez. He was taking on a very, very tough opponent in David Jimenez. So I could see why that would cause him a lot of problems. But, look, man, being someone that has been through a Kameda Promotions, and I've seen it from behind the scenes. I've talked to people that manage fighters, that have put their fighters on Kameda cards. They don't have a good reputation. They don't. In fact, I'll tell you guys a story. Since we're in the latter part of the live. When Angelo Leo fought Kameda out there in Japan last May, I remember the day of the media workouts after we were done at the Kameda gym. Koki Kameda came up to the whole team after the media workouts, and he was trying to take us out on the town. Like he wanted to take us all over Osaka and show us all the best restaurants, all these kind of things. And what was going to happen, because I talked to people that have had their fighters on their cards before, so I knew what the play was. If we would have did that, they was going to get us all the prostitutes the money could have bought that night to get Angelo and the rest of the team compromised for the Kameda fight. That's what's going to happen, because that's what's happened to a lot of people out there in Japan that have fought on Kameda cards. They want to know, TSM wants to know, was it worse working with Kameda or was it worse working with Alim? That's a good question. Because on one hand, you had to go across the world, and there was a lot of hoops you had to jump through, but the fight happened, right? On the other hand, there was also probably Alim. I'll say Alim, because at the end of the day, you want to fight. You're not going to camp. And in my case, whenever Angelo fights, I gotta sit here and watch all these guys game plan. I gotta watch. So you can only imagine how many times I watched Rais Alim versus Rudy Garcia, or Rais Alim versus what's his name? Rudy Garcia and Nakano. And it gets to the point where you fucking hate these guys because you're watching them so much. And it's the same thing with Venado. I had to watch Venado Lopez versus Joel Gonzalez a million times. And for that camp, it was Dimiani watching a lot of Kameda versus Dimiani 1 and 2, Kameda versus no names in between those fights, Kameda versus Jane McDonald early in his career, like just so probably definitely probably Alim. I would say Alim for sure. Because one thing I will say, and I give Kameda Promotions credit for this, the hotel they put us in was world class. It was amazing. They had the best buffet, one of the best buffets I've ever been to. They had udon noodles and different salmons, and they had like Mexican food in there. It was a nice hotel in downtown Osaka. I can't say the same for where we stayed at for the Alim fight. The elevators didn't work most of the days we were there. The water was turned off one night. So some of the people on a certain floor had to vacate the room and get a new room on other floors. It was just a shit show. So I would say Alim. And then Alim didn't make weight on top of that. So Angel didn't get a chance to fight. I mean, I'm not going to make any disparaging remarks about Demetrius Lita because he's treated me pretty good. But yeah, we've heard over the years Jarrell Miller say things about them and whatnot. They're trying their best, you know, and God willing, their best can improve as time goes on, as we're all trying to improve. The best fighter on Tank's resume? Right now, I would say it's a toss-up between Ryan Garcia and Pitbull Cruz, maybe. I would say one of those two. Who do you guys think it is? The JBC is still trying to ban them. The Commanders had a great idea. They want a quicksand to be a meeting point for boxing from Japan, the Philippines, and Central Asia. I think it's a great idea too. And I'll tell you this, man. This is my opinion as an American, as a proud American who really believes in free market capitalism and freedom of expression, which I know a lot of those things do conflict with Japanese philosophy and Japanese culture. I don't necessarily think the Commanders are that bad. Like, I think they had some good ideas. Obviously, they do shady shit, which is why they have a bad reputation. But, like, they've had some good ideas. And not for nothing, they've had some pretty well-matched cards. Now, for those that know, for those that don't know, the JBC, they're Mr. Honda's back pocket. Like, you deal with the JBC, you're pretty much dealing with Mr. Honda. And that's where the conflict, that's where everything is, why it's like this. But yeah, like when I was in Japan, I would ask everybody I would talk to that was Japanese. I would say, hey, why don't you guys like the Kamedas? And I got all kinds of different explanations. And my conclusion is that they're not the squeaky clean people, but who is? You know? I don't think they're as bad as people say. Like yeah, they were dodgy in some regards, but they have good box people that match their fights well. They had some good ideas, and I thought they had some value to add to Japanese boxing. And I do wish it's my hope. It was my hope that Mr. Honda and the Kamedas can work something out, because really and truthfully, I think it would have been pretty cool to see what they could have did together, you know? Yeah, they were just trying to get Tomoki the best chance possible. But other than that, I mean, you know, from what I can tell you is they put us in a great hotel. Everybody from our team was accommodated with the room. We fought in a decent venue, you know. Inevitably, you know, Angelo did get paid, you know, so it was good. I liked it. I don't think they were nearly as bad as it was told to me. Now, of course, they pulled tactics to try to get an advantage, but you know, that's part and parcel of championship boxing. But yeah, the Alim promotion was just a crock. BT, if possible, could you give the characteristics of what fighter can or will beat Shakur and Keyshawn Davis if they do have a loss on the record? I think the fighter that beats Shakur and Keyshawn Davis, it'll be someone that either so in the case of Shakur, it'll be someone that has a style very similar to his that can offset things that he likes to do, which is why I think the Oshaki Foster fight is an interesting fight. Shakur's never fought a technical boxer on that level. And if not that, it's going to be somebody that's extremely unorthodox, like a Vaquero Navarrete, volume puncher, throws from weird angles that you can't prepare for in the gym. So it'll be one of those two. You know, I don't think it'll just be a traditional pressure fighter, and I don't think it could just be an outright pure boxer, because an outright pure boxer, Shakur will outpoint him, and you know Keyshawn has enough boxing skills to offset that. I think it'll be one of those two things. Leo Santa Cruz, the best fighter on Tank's resume. You know, Leo is a good fighter. I don't want to down Leo because I feel like Leo Santa Cruz, you know, he was a guy that helped my boy Angel Leo back in the day sparring, and but when he was like, I feel like there were a lot of fights he left on the table. You know, I wasn't the biggest Leo Santa Cruz guy, to be honest, because I wanted to see certain fights. But I mean, I can't knock it. He did fight Carl Frenda 2 times. He lost the first time. He lost the first time, came back, he avenged it with a very good game plan the second fight. I'm not mad at that. You know that older black guy who was in T.O.'s corner that you interviewed, and Shakur said he was giving T.O. good advice other than going to the body. What else? What else are you saying? What else was he saying that you could remember? To be honest, I that's one of those fights where I kind of just checked out of it after the 4th or 5th round, and I didn't watch it back. So I don't remember anything he said. But shout out to Stacey McKinley. I got to reach out to him because we still got to do the interview. Like, he never came back on here to do the interview after the fight, and he agreed to it. Like, I had the text messages. He agreed to it. So, God willing, at some point this year, we can get Stacey McKinley back on the to do the interview. BT, will you be at the Garcia Ben fight? Keith Conley said they have agreed to all terms on their side. I don't know what the date is yet, so I can't say. The only 2 fights I can tell you guys definitively for sure that I know that I'll be at are Deron Ennis versus Xander on June 26th, and Andy Dominguez versus Anthony Olascoaga on July 11th. Other than that, I don't know where I'm going to be at. Shit, man, I just realized I've been sitting here just rambling away for over 2.5 hours. I'm at 2 hours and 48 minutes. So fuck it. I'm gonna give y'all 3. I guess 3 hours is the new standard now, because I want, you know, we'll go with 3 hours. Make sure you smash that like button, super chat for these last 13 to 15 minutes that I'll be here, and make sure y'all show your love and appreciation for Devin Haney. Quote tweeted me earlier saying I don't know shit. Where is the power, bro? Where's your power, bro? A lot of people feel like that. A lot of people feel like that about Tank and his resume. You know, Pedraza was a guy that, was a. Now, I don't like all this revisionist history. People like to act like Pedraza was this killer when Tank fought him. He was a good champion. But see, I actually watch boxing, and unfortunately for a lot of people out there, I got to make videos about all this shit on a day-to-day basis. The way I have my channel structured out is I cover boxing as it was at that particular time. So I remember I retain a lot of information. And I remember Pedraza fighting Edner Cherry on PBC toe-to-toe Tuesdays. And I remember Edner Cherry, the wily veteran at that time. Edner Cherry has fought guys like Timothy Bradley and things like that. Good fighter, solid fighter. I thought he beat Pedraza, and they gave Pedraza a gift in that fight. And so I didn't look at Pedraza as this unbeatable fighter. Like Tank likes to act like Floyd gave him this killer. I thought he gave him a very beatable champion. And I've seen a lot of people, a lot of Tank fans try to rewrite history. And I remember going into that fight, I was like, nah. Tank's gonna beat the shit out of this dude. This dude lost to Edner Cherry, who really is old. And you should have, he wasn't like that. But it was nonetheless, it was a good win. It was a solid win, but not what people make it out to be. A man Afro Jam says the other thing is that Abima is not funding boxing like that no more. They're giving a lot of airtime to a lot of wrestling. That's unfortunate, because I know Abima was really bullish early on, especially during like Aoi Yokoyama's early fights in the pros. They were really bullish on him. So that sucks, because I know in Japan, when it comes to like TV structure, it's like Lamino is the top dog. Then it was like Abima TV. So like my question would be for anybody out there that might know, if Abima is not involved in Japanese boxing no more, then what's the second biggest platform in Japan? If it's not, I know Lamino was the premier gold standard platform. What's number two? They said Devin Haney showing the love. I mean, I haven't. Apart from what he said initially, unless he said anything back, has he said anything nice? For those of you who are following the notifications, because I haven't even checked. Has he said anything nice other than you don't know shit about boxing? I'll take it as a grain of salt. The fact that your boy BT, Brendan Taylor, True School Sports, who's not as big as Fight Hype, who's not as big as Ring Magazine, numbers wise, who's not as big as a lot of channels that Devin Haney should pay attention to and does interviews with. The fact that I could get the attention of good old Devin Haney, future Hall of Famer, 3-division champion, top 10 pound for pound fighter, undisputed champion, that says nothing about me. Just how good I am, how relevant I am on these YouTube streets. Have I spoken on Ryan versus Ben yet? I just got informed that apparently it got made. Ryan Garcia should beat the shit out of Conor Benn in 6 rounds or less, because Conor Benn is not on that level. Conor Benn, respect to him, and this goes for Devin too. If Devin would fight him, I would say Devin's supposed to stop Conor Benn, because Conor Benn, I don't view him as an elite, true world-class fighter, because I've seen Conor Benn fight guys, personal friends of mine, guys like Adrian Granados and Pete Dobson, who are good pros, but not elite creme de la creme fighters. And he gave those guys, showed a lot of chinks in the armor. Granados, who's a, flat-footed, leaky defense fighter, volume puncher. He's boxing Conor Benn, frustrating him. Pete Dobson wasn't even in his best shape, counter-punching Conor Benn, winning, taking rounds off of him, right? So my thing is like low volume fighter too. At that, Pete Dobson's not an elite puncher, and he's a low output fighter. Had success against Conor Benn. So my thing is, if Ryan Garcia is what I believe he is, which I believe he is a upper echelon talent. Maybe he hasn't realized that talent, but I believe he is upper echelon talent, because there's a reason why everybody in boxing wanted him when he turned pro. There's a reason why he was good enough to have a trilogy fight where him and Devin Haney were three fights apiece to amateurs, because he's damn talented. So if Ryan is what I think he is, that fight should literally not even go past this. It should go at max 6 rounds, straight up. Ben's marketability doesn't match his talent. Yeah, but there's a lot of fighters like that. There's tons of fighters like that, but for him, it seems more pronounced. But you know what, Conor Benn, I don't like the fact that he tested positive for steroids and they try to cover it up. I hate that aspect of it, but the fact that he's Nigel Benn's son and he will come to be an action fighter and he is limited, in that regard, he'll make some good TV fights. So that's never a bad thing for boxing. How do you feel about Boots' power translating at 154 against top guys, and do you consider him a one-punch KO artist or a volume puncher? I definitely consider him more of a volume puncher, because one of his biggest assets is his speed, and most guys who possess his kind of speed are volume punchers to some extent. Not saying now don't get it twisted. You make a mistake against Boots, you overcommit, you violate, he can demonstrate. But I would say, just go look at most of the knockouts in his career and how he goes about his stoppages. It's not one single shot. It's combinations. It's the waves of speed and pressure he puts on you, right? So as far as his power against the 154 guys, it's hard to really say, because he's only boxed one round at 54, and it was against the Angolan animal Usima Lima, which is the bottom of the barrel if we're talking about guys in the rankings, with all respect to him. So that being said, we're gonna find out in the Xander fight. I think if I make an educated guess, I think Boots will have that explosive, snappy power that will shock you in the first 3 or 4 rounds. But I see him as more of like a slightly above average puncher at 54. If he wants knockouts 54, it's gonna come down to his placement and how much he's able to get downhill on his opponents and push them back. At 47, I feel like he was close to a one-punch guy, but at 54, it'll be more about like his combinations and pushing guys back. Lamino is with Yuhashi. You next Amazon Prime is with Tekken. Okay, I get it. But in my opinion, they're all kind of Tekken. Like Ohashi at the big world-class level of Japanese boxing, the way it's been explained to me by people that know more than me about Japanese boxing, everyone at the top level, indirectly or directly, is with Tekken because Mr. Honda oversees everything. But I get it. Each promoter has different platforms. Lima is not bad. He just did not respect Boots, which was silly. Lima is a solid, okay, he's a solid pro. He's a fringe contender. He's a guy that could give some guys in the top 15 some good fights. And on the right day, maybe upset a guy in the top 15. But if we're talking about Jaron Ennis, a guy that's supposed to be otherworldly, generational talent, supposedly, there's no comparison. And, he was who we thought he was, a guy that was no match for Jaron Ennis. And credit to Boots handled it the way he was supposed to. Ben is a UK superstar. Ryan's a huge star. It's going to be a big, offensively entertaining fight on Mexican Independence Day. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of Brits will come out. A lot of drunk Brits will come out and make it a great event. Or maybe they won't. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm not as clued in as to how much behind Conor Ben they are as to like other fighters. Like I'm pretty sure Conor Ben is not going to be Ricky Hatton to where he has 10,000 Brits coming to the arena, but maybe he could bring some Brits to Vegas or Cali, wherever they fight. I think people forget how good Ryan was in the amateurs. He did not lose a single round and made easy work of everyone in the youth Olympic trials against Tiger. Listen, man, I know people that have seen Ryan in the amateurs. I've heard stories that I won't tell, but stories about Ryan Garcia, sparring stories. I'm talking about like where dudes is going to the fucking ambulance from sparring Ryan, like shit like that. Like he's a very, very talented fighter, and I've always given him credit for his talent. Who are your top 5 Mexican fighters right now, in your opinion? Not Mexican Americans, Mexican fighters. Like, who do I think is the best? If I gotta go in order, see, Vaquero Navarrete is number 1 right now because I think he's in the best form. And he's on the pound for pound list. Canelo would be second. Who else you got? Mexican fighters. 118, 122. I'll go with Rafael Espinoza 3. I'll go with Jaime Munguia 4. And 5, I'll go with Christian Chispa Medina. I'll go with that. I'm probably missing somebody big because you put me on the spot, but like those are the guys that come to mind right now. That's what I thought. But I don't know because I'm not there, so I don't want to talk out of turn. I feel like most people, from what I've seen, are looking at Conor Ben as an industry plant, nepo baby, nepotism, that kind of thing. So again, he's not going to be Ricky Hatton. Now, Osiris is saying the Mexican monster. They were saying like pure Mexicans, like not Mexican Americans. If it was Mexican Americans, you're gonna get all kinds of different names from me. You would have got Benavidez, you would have got Bam, you would have got Angel Leo, of course. You would have got Pacheco, probably would have been somewhere in there. Speaking of Medina, and by the way, guys, these are my last 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna go out here and dip because it's 3:30 in the morning. So shout out to everybody who's rocking with me all the way at 3:33 in the morning Eastern time, 12:33 a.m. Pacific time. Shout out to everybody on the West Coast. He says, speaking of Medina, why is Bam's team obsessed with fighting him? Isn't the best win a subpar to K? It's weird how they keep harping over fighting him. I think honestly, I'm okay with that fight. I like that fight. I think Medina's a good fighter. He suffered some loss early in his career, and he beat the shit out of Yoshiki Takei. So to me, he's the truth. He's golden to me because he got the guy that I couldn't stand in that division out of there. But I think he's a good action fighter, and they're looking at it from an entertainment standpoint. He actually has a belt, so that would actually be a title for Bam. But I wouldn't say they're obsessed with fighting him because if they were really as obsessed as you say they are with fighting him, they wouldn't be fighting Antonio Vargas for this Reggie Trinket belt they're about to fight him for. That's how I feel. So you're saying that they're harping on him too much. I don't think they're harping on him enough. I feel like they should have fought him instead of Antonio Vargas. You know, Ohashi and Tekken do not like each other. It's just in the Tokyo, Yokohama metro area. They are dominant. They work together internationally and against areas, other countries. Well, they could have fooled me, man, because I'll tell you this. And like you said, they work together internationally. So when I see them, I'm genuinely, most of the time, I'm seeing them in an international setting. But man, I've seen people from Ohashi and Tekken, the staff with each other. So it just feels like they're together. And then I also know just from my own dealings with people in Japan, like I know that, for example, the Hachiyoshi Nakaya boxing gym, which is a gym I'm very close to, Issei Nakaya has meetings with Ohashi and Honda and these guys, and they do business together. They're all part of the same team. So that's the impression I get, but I understand. Tokyo people are Tokyo people, Yokohama people are Yokohama people, and Osaka people are like their own different type of breed. So I get it. Trust me, I get it. Who do you think Rafael Espinoza is fighting next? Well, I don't think it's Bruce Carrington because he's got a fight coming up. I definitely don't think it's Angelo Leo because it would go against the way that Zampa Promotions is moving him, right? To put him in there with Angelo. So let me see. Let's go to the rankings. Espinoza will probably fight. Let me see. We go to 26. Who's the most feather-fisted guy in the rankings? I was gonna say Kenji Fujita, but maybe the guy that beat him. If not him, maybe he fights Jan Santana. I could see that fight. Maybe Espinoza could fight Jan Santana because he showed enough chinks in the armor. He's a good boxer, but he don't got a lot of pop like that. That could be a fight. If not him, maybe Nick Ball. Nick Ball's 8. He's a former champion. That could be a fight. He's smaller. There's value in that fight. Maybe someone like that. But if I gotta take a guess, I'm gonna say either he fights Ryota Owan or Jan Santana or Ryota Muto from Japan. I feel like he fights one of the Japanese guys ranked there or someone like that. Is boxing a big sport in Japan? Like, for example, most people here probably know more about football. Is it bigger in Japan than it is here? Boxing, I would say, from my experience, I would say boxing is the third most popular sport in Japan behind baseball. And believe it or not, soccer. Soccer is very popular in Japan. There's been a lot of investment into the Japanese national team. But from talking to many gym owners across Japan, from Tokyo to Yokohama to Kyoto to Nagoya to Takamatsu to Okoyama, every nook and cranny I've been to in Japan, every gym owner and youth boxing coach has told me that in the last 2 to 3 years with Inoue becoming a superstar with the Fulton fights, the Neri fight at the Tokyo Dome, and I'm sure this last fight against Nakatani, every gym owner has told me that the youth boxing signups have been gone up through the roof because of Inoue over the last couple of years. So I would say Japan has a stronghold as the third strongest sport in the country. I personally feel like Lorenzo Parra is too much of a risk because he's got big time knockout power. And if you just look at the guys Espinoza's fought as champion, they don't really have. They're not above average punchers. Vasquez is not a puncher. Sergio Trino Sanchez is not a puncher. Arnold K. Guy is rugged, but he's not a puncher. Well, Basie's probably the biggest puncher he's fought. And he's a solid puncher, but I wouldn't say he's not Bernardo Lopez. He's not Bruce. He's not Angelo Leo in terms of punching power at featherweight. But guys, on that note, I'm gonna put a bow on this live. I am tired. I've said what I needed to say about all the latest and greatest in boxing. So look, man, I appreciate everybody that showed support. Definitely subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on that 91K, which means we're getting close to that 100K, and the inevitable 100K subscriber celebration that's gonna happen in Las Vegas. So looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm not sure when I'll be live again, guys. But lot of great interviews coming out on the channel. I've already contacted a couple guys and they've agreed to do some interviews. Maybe who knows? Maybe Devin Haney's really a fan of True School and he'll come on here and he'll do an interview, but I doubt it. But we'll see. Leave your comments. See you guys in the next live. Get some sleep because that's what I'm gonna do, and we'll see you in the next video.